Baseball League. Yes, folks, the CFL opened tonight. Edmonton, Calgary. I shouldn't say that. We have a lot of people who like the CFL, but when you hear the score, 1-1, that's the score at the end of the second quarter. Let's go to Calgary right now. Here is the opening kickoff for CFL 86. Isn't this exciting? Chris Skinner of Edmonton grabs the ball. He takes the ball up to the Edmonton 33. All right, we're into football. Can you believe it? Here it is. We're still in June. Now, Matt Dunnigan. Here's the first blitz of the season. Blitz number 1. All right. Okay, you saw it right here first. All right, now Dunnigan back to pass to Mark Sinikar. He looks for him. Greg Peterson with the first interception of the season. All right. Now, here comes the first point of the season. Watch Tom Dixon. This is it. Into the end zone. 1 point coming up. It's 1-0 Edmonton. It sounds like a...
Expo 86, the focal point of worldwide attention, with over 6 million people already visiting Vancouver's World's Fair site. And close to 20 million visitors are expected before the fair closes in October. But visiting the many pavilions at Expo 86 is not on the agenda tonight for 2 of Canada's top football teams. The Winnipeg Blue Bombers and the BC Lions have battled for the Western Championship in each of the last 3 years. In '84, Winnipeg won 31-14 and went on to a Grey Cup triumph a week later in Edmonton, 47-17 over the Hamilton Tiger Cats, Winnipeg's first Grey Cup triumph in 22 years. Last year, the Lions dethroned the Bombers under the dome behind a strong performance by Roy DeWalt, 42-22. And then the Lions defeated Hamilton in the Grey Cup in Montreal, 37-24, their first national championship in 21 years. And tonight, this city that has welcomed the world to Expo 86 serves as the launching pad for the 1986 CFL season for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and the British Columbia Lions.
The following is a live presentation of CBC Sports. The best of Canadian professional football, the CFL on CBC. Welcome to Carling O'Keefe, CFL football. And now, for all the action, let's join our CBC commentary team.
From the stadium at BC Place, welcome to another season of CFL football on CBC television. Hi everyone, I'm Don Whitman, and it's a pleasure to be back with you for this 1986 season. And what a way to start the year with the Grey Cup champions from the past 2 years, Winnipeg and BC. And speaking of Grey Cup champions, back in 1972, a young quarterback came out of the University of Toledo to lead the Hamilton Tiger Cats to a Grey Cup win over the Saskatchewan Roughriders by a score of 13-10. And tonight it's a pleasure to welcome Chuck Ely to our broadcast crew for 1986.
Thank you, Don. I'm very happy to be a part of the CBC crew, and I'm looking forward to an exciting season here in the CFL.
And the losing quarterback in that 72 Grey Cup game, Ron Lancaster, who is back with us again to provide his expertise.
Don, they had an old saying in Saskatchewan that the wind would blow 9 months a year and Lancaster would blow playoff games in the fall.
You won quite a few playoff games for the Saskatchewan Roughriders. I might add, the last time they were in the playoffs, you were the quarterback back in 1976. Chuck Ely, speaking of quarterbacks, Roy DeWalt obviously holds the key for the British Columbia Lions.
Definitely. I think Roy DeWalt will have a key in this game because of his drop back ability. Mervyn Fernandez will be watched closely by the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and also the receivers of the BC Lions will have to get open to offer him some other receive options to go to. I think it's important for Mervyn Fernandez to stay back in the pocket, to stay calm, and do a good job back there.
Now, what about the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, Ron Lancaster? How will they defend the BC Lions and Roy DeWalt?
Well, I'll tell you, let's face it, they had an excellent defense last year. Only gave up 16 points a game, 25 touchdowns. Only 53% of the passes thrown against them were complete. They have 3 down linemen, but these 4 guys, Tyrone Jones, James West, Delbert Fowler, and Darrell Patterson, that is the key to the Winnipeg defense. They're big, they're strong, they're fast, and they're agile. And I think because of this linebacking core this year, they're going to even be stronger than they were last year.
What about individual performances?
Well, I think individuals always are a big part of any game. Tyrone Jones, last year's Shenley Award winner on the defensive side of the football, number 35. had 11 sacks. He's the kind of guy, Don Matthews described him yesterday as a guy you knock off his feet, he gets up, makes the tackle without breaking a stride. So I think Tyrone Jones is a force to be reckoned with. Offensively, Joe Poplawski in his 9th season, he is now the leading receiver for the Blue Bombers in history. He only had 6 touchdowns on 75 receptions last year, but the reason for that is that he makes the key catches inside, keeps drives alive, and gets them first downs, and I think he's a big factor tonight.
Chuck, what about the BC Lions, the defending Grey Cup champions?
Well, with the BC Lions, you've got James Quick Parker. Tremendous athletic ability to put pressure on all quarterbacks, and he will be the key for their defense. Not only did he make 12 sacks last year, but he put a lot of pressure that forced sacks by other parts of his teammates. For the wide receiver position, you have to look at Mervin Fernandez, a tremendous receiver, the ability to go down deep as well as catch the ball short and take it all the way. Winnipeg Blue Bombers will have their hands full trying to cover him tonight, and I'm sure they'll try to double cover him throughout the evening.
Well, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers will be seeing a lot of Mervin Fernandez tonight because in addition to his receiving duties, Fernandez will be handling the punting chores for the BC Lions. Lou Pasaglia is out with an injury, missing his first game in 10 years with the BC Lions. And, of course, missing from the Winnipeg lineup, veteran center John Bonk, who has retired. Now, let's go to CFL Control and Brian Williams.
Thank you, Don. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to CFL Control in Toronto for this 1986 season. Chuck Ely to you from all of us at CFL Control. The very best of luck as you join Ron Lancaster, Don Whitman, and Steve Armitage. Now, there is one other game tonight. Our old buddy Leo Cahill's Argonauts leading the Ticats in the 4th quarter. All the highlights at halftime.
2 extra games added to the schedule, and there's also overtime. Successful start tonight, defeating the Hamilton Tiger Cats 21-20. The second game in the CFL with a 1-point decision. And here we're tied at 7. A penalty flag is key week of the 1986 CFL schedule. On Friday, Montreal visits Ottawa. Then on Sunday, Calgary is at Saskatchewan. For the Calgary Stampeders, it will be their second game, the first for the Saskatchewan Roughriders. And the Ottawa Roughriders at their game will be offering some special prizes for the fans in attendance. 4 trips to Expo 86. And they will coincide with the visit of the Ottawa Roughriders to Vancouver in September. So you fans attending games at Lansdowne Park, particularly the season opener, have something to look forward to in addition to the football action you'll be seeing.
Plus the fact that over the years, the Ottawa Roughriders play the Lions tough right here in Vancouver. For some reason, they give them fits out here.
Congratulations on your recent appointment as Vice President of Pro Personnel for the Dallas Cowboys. But prior to talking about that, a very proud moment for you earlier tonight at the stadium as you brought in the Grey Cup in the company of Mike Harcourt, the mayor of the city of Vancouver, along with the president of the BC Lions, Woody McLaren, and unfurled that Grey Cup championship banner. A very proud moment for someone who, as I said earlier this year, had the BC emblem tattooed on his butt and is now leaving the organization.
Well, thank you, Don. It's been a great association with the BC Lions and with the Canadian Football League, and in a way I'm sad to leave, but the opportunity I think is a great one for me, and maybe it's time to leave Vancouver and try something else.
Well, you caught a lot of people by surprise because usually an appointment such as that is preceded by a certain amount of speculation, but this one, you told me tonight, came right out of the blue.
Yes, I was in training camp for a day, and Tex Schramm called and offered me the job, and so I went down and talked to him. It took me a week to make the decision, and that was it.
Well, for someone who has been associated with the BC Lions as long as you have, it must have been a difficult decision to make. Penalty flags on this play as Clements was attempting to throw. James Parker was the man who was pressuring Tom Clements. Bob, a couple of things in the CFL this year that are different. One, the expanded schedule, 18 games, and the revised playoff format. Your comments on that?
Well, I think the 18-game schedule was something the league needed. You know, the preseason games, we weren't drawing well, so we have probably 42,000 here tonight, and on our second preseason game last year we had 27, so that says something. Now we have the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in here. The playoff format, I think it's interesting, and I think it had to be changed. I'm in favor of the East-West Grey Cup, the continuation of that. but I think we had to see some form of a change in the playoff structure.
Good evening again, everyone. Welcome back to CFL Control in Toronto. There is one other game tonight. The final score here in Toronto, bit of an upset. The Argonauts defeating the Hamilton Ticats. Second one-point game of the year. Of course, Edmonton winning by a point Tuesday in Calgary. I'll have highlights coming up in just a minute. It is Sports Hall of Fame, the dinner here in Toronto. My skiing partner, Ken Reed, along with swimmer Graham Smith, Red Story, a former CFL star, NHL official, Jean-Louis Levesque from horse racing, and the late Montreal goaltender Bill Dernan. Expos and Blue Jays.
11-7 is the halftime score here at the stadium at BC Place. The Lions in front of the Blue Bombers. Neither team was able to establish much of a ground game. Both teams primarily working through the air offensively, with the Lions picking up 111 yards to 97 for Winnipeg. But the big story in that first half, 4 turnovers by the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. And Ron, that very first turnover resulted in a BC touchdown.
Well, it sure did. You know, you hate to turn the football over at any time, but especially this way, Chuck. It's unfortunate.
Definitely. As you look here, as Cameron is receiving the ball, it's a matter of concentration when you're in this position. He drops the ball, and then Jan Karenzi scoops the ball up and runs and carries it to the end zone for the touchdown for the BC Lions.
Well, that gives the Lions a 7-0 lead. We're going to see the Winnipeg touchdown to Tuttle. Watch the key block. The left guard, Nick Vistaya, comes back out, and he will make the key block on James Parker. This is going to give Tom Clements time. Watch it. Bang. He handles Parker. Now Clements steps back up in the pocket. Tuttle gets open, 35 yards, and we have a tie score. He got open behind Mel Bird.
Now, the next one you'll see as Tom Clements rolls out to his right, he's throwing to Murphy down the sideline. Murphy falls, and Tommy's trying to overthrow him, and as he does, Darnell Clash makes an excellent reception for the interception and gets up and begins to try to carry it upfield. With his speed and his ability, he's dangerous.
Boy, he sure is. And you know, Don, we said these are the 2 best defensive teams in the CFL last year in the '85 season. Watch Kevin Konar time this just right. Bang. Just as the ball snapped, he hits the hole, and the ball's fumbled, and Tyrone Cruz, number 91, is going to recover and give the Lions excellent field position.
Well, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, when you consider those 4 turnovers, perhaps are fortunate to only be trailing by 4 points after 30 minutes of play. We'll return with a continuation of our halftime show and the second half kickoff right after we pause for this message. Opening week of play in the Canadian Football League for 1986. 2 exciting games already in the books. 21-20. Edmonton over Calgary on Tuesday night, and tonight at CNE Stadium in Toronto, 21-20, the Argos over Hamilton. Here, it's 11-7. The BC Lions leading the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Trevor Kennard, who established a CFL single-season scoring record a year ago, and came into this game requiring just 8 points to hit the 1,000 mark in his career. He has 1 convert. We'll kick it off to start.
And Ticats from Hamilton, Western viewers, the Lions and the Eskimos from Edmonton.
Lions off to a successful defense of the Grey Cup in their opening game of '86 with a triumph 28-17 over the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Some outstanding individual performances tonight on both sides of the field. Jan Karinci got them started as Murphy and Matthews exchange handshakes at center field. We'll be back right after this. Winners over the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in a very entertaining football game tonight here at the stadium at BC Place. Right from the first minute when we saw that recovery by Jan Karinci for a BC touchdown, we had a lot of unusual activity on the playing field.
Well, both teams came up with some very unusual plays and some exciting plays that turned out and helped them score. The pass by Mervyn Fernandez was an exceptional play by them, which probably was the key for them going on and getting ahead and staying there.
Well, Mervyn Fernandez last year on Lancaster won the Shenley Award as the country's outstanding player. He's going to get a lot of votes just on his performance tonight, although those Shenley Awards are a long way off. But he really played well.
Well, he's such an outstanding player. We've marveled at his ability over the years, and it just seems he gets better all the time. And you know, what can you say? If he keeps this up, it'll be unbelievable.
Well, the BC Lions 28-17 victors tonight in their season opener here at the stadium at BC Place over the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. That's the final score. Right now, let's go back to CFL Control and Brian Williams.
All right, thank you, Don Whitman. Thanks to Chuck Ely and Ron Lancaster. Lions win by 11 earlier tonight. In case you missed it, the Argonauts beating Hamilton 21-20. Big weekend coming up tonight. The Grey Cup champions defeat the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Next Thursday, Eastern viewers will see the game from Hamilton. Western viewers, the game from Edmonton. I'm Brian Williams. Good night from CFL Control.
CFL football. Are you ready? Okay, all you CFL fans, the defending Grey Cup champion BC Lions opened the regular season on a winning note last night, defeating the Winnipeg Blue Bombers 28-17 in Vancouver. Let's go get some football action.
Third quarter, the Lions increased their lead. A pass interference call against Winnipeg on this play gives BC a first down at the Winnipeg 1-yard line. And on the next play, Keevan Jenkins goes in from a yard out as the Lions are on top 18-7. Early in the fourth quarter, the Bombers come back. Clements goes to James Murphy. He makes a great catch for a first down at the 2-yard line. Then Willard Reeves scores his touchdown as the Bombers trail 18-17. And then comes the play of the game. The Lions deep in their own territory. The flip to Fernandez, and he flips it to Ned Armour, wide open downfield. The play covers 86 yards, giving BC a first down at the Winnipeg 21-yard line and getting the Lions out of trouble. On the next play, Roy DeWalt goes to newcomer Scott Leakey. The touchdown makes it 25-17 BC. The Bombers' comeback is snuffed out when Larry Crawford picks off this Tom Clements pass. The Lions add another field goal and win the first meeting between the Lions and the Bombers. 28-17 the final tonight at BC Place.
CFL season continued this afternoon in Regina. The Saskatchewan Roughriders playing in their first game of the regular season, and their opposition, the Calgary Stampeders, looking to avoid their second straight defeat.
1-0 Saskatchewan in the first quarter when Joe Pow hooked up with Tony Dennis behind coverage for the first TD of the game and the first CFL touchdown for Dennis. Stamps had trouble offensively in the first quarter and in fact had a net loss of 20 yards offense. Fran McDermott gets the sack. But the Stamps had the wind in their favor in the second quarter, and Rick Johnson made the most of it. He found former Rough Rider Emmanuel Tolbert in the end zone for the touchdown, and the Stamps trailed by 3 at the half, 11-8. But early in the third quarter, Gary Moulton picks off Johnson in Calgary territory. One of 3 interceptions by the defense in the game. Riders capitalized with running back Bobby Johnson scoring his first CFL touchdown. It came at the 1:49 mark of the third quarter and gave the Riders a 17-8 lead. Johnson, the story of the game offensively, as the Riders used a strong running attack. He carried 25 times for 116 yards, and he capped off a 75-yard, 10-play drive late in the game with a 2-yard run around the right side. Just 2 seconds left on the clock as the Rough Riders defeat the Calgary Stampeders 28-14.
In 1985, even though they lost their first 5 games, the Hamilton Tiger Cats came alive in the second half of the season and won the Eastern Division Championship with a 50-26 win over Montreal. The Hamilton turnaround to what appeared to be a dismal season coincided with the insertion of Ken Hobart into the starting quarterback position. The rookie from the University of Idaho passed for 19 touchdowns, second best in the entire league. And Ken Hobart also established a CFL record for most rushing yards by a quarterback. Hobart ran for 928 yards and was runner-up for the Shenley Award as the league's outstanding performer. And if his opening game of '86 is any indication, 118 rushing yards against Toronto, Hobart could easily break the 1,000-yard barrier this season. And when you talk about opening games, Chris Sigler provided the story in Ottawa's 2011 win over Montreal. The sophomore defensive back equaled a single-game record, intercepting 4 passes, including this one for a 70-yard touchdown. And Ottawa tonight will require another outstanding defensive effort if they hope to contain the Hamilton Tiger Cats in their home opener here at Ivor Wynne Stadium. Hi, everyone. I'm Don Whitman along with Chuck Ely. And Chuck, tonight, the Ottawa Rough Riders will be tested by the team most feel will be the top club in the Eastern Conference.
Definitely. Ottawa has to come up with a big defensive effort, especially against Ken Hobart. Ken Hobart is an exciting player, and a lot of it's going to depend on the efforts of Greg Marshall as a defensive end. He has to be able to get to Ken Hobart when the contain end on the other side, stop him, and pick him up from the backside and make you do the job.
Well, Marshall certainly has all the ability to do just that. He is one of the outstanding defensive ends in the entire league. 4 interceptions in one game for Chris Sigler. Some defensive backs go an entire year without that many interceptions. But offensively, the Ottawa Rough Riders had some problems in that game against Montreal. J.C. Watt struggled a little, didn't he?
Well, J.C. Watts is definitely the key to their offense. They have to have a good job from him. He has to be consistent. The problem over the years is J.C. Watts has been inconsistent, and they've got to get the type of effort from him that will lead their offense, and that's consistency.
Well, Joe Moss, the coach of the Ottawa Rough Riders, didn't waste any time when J.C. Watts was struggling in that season opener against Montreal, inserting the rookie Tom Burgess into the lineup. You think we might see Burgess tonight?
Well, I think Joe is kind of confident in Burgess to the point where if J.C. doesn't move the team early in the game, he will go to Burgess. And I think the team seems to have some confidence in the young quarterback. And if that's the case, then they'll go to him early.
Well, let's talk about the Ticats now, the Eastern Division champions for the past 2 years, and the pick of most of the experts to repeat this year, even though they lost their season opener to Toronto 21-20. In that game, Ken Hobart ran with the ball again. I don't think Al Bruno wants him to run as much this year as he did a year ago.
Definitely not. It's an 18-game season, and so you'll want to try to keep your quarterback as healthy as possible. In 18 games, if he's running as much as he ran last week throughout the season, the possibilities of him getting hurt are there, and you don't want to take that chance with the ability he has in losing him.
Well, Al Bruno, of course, is very pleased with his club defensively. Last year, they established a league record 46 interceptions. 2 players had a dozen each, Les Brown and the safety Paul Bennett, who went on to win a Shenley Award.
Well, Paul Bennett is definitely the key to that defensive secondary. The other secondary members are good in one-on-one coverage, but Paul Bennett roams the area and does a good job as far as covering up for those guys if they make a mistake. And you need that type of experience back there. He's a little less in the speed that he's had in the past, but his experience makes up for that speed that maybe he's lost.
You think the Hamilton Tiger Cats tonight will try and pressure J.C. Watts? They've got a very strong front four.
Well, just talking to the defensive guys, they're going to mix it up. They know that they can play one-on-one coverage, but they've got to keep J.C. Watts off balance and try to do some different things besides just playing man-to-man coverage. So they're going to mix it up and have some zone, but they will do a lot of blitzing against him to keep him off balance.
Well, the Hamilton Tiger Cats and the Ottawa Rough Riders are just about set to kick it off here at Ivor Wynne Stadium in Hamilton. And before we get to that opening kickoff, let's go to CFL Control and Don Martin.
Good evening and welcome to CFL 86 here on CBC. We begin week 2. Let's set the stage for you as they get ready to play tonight. In the East, Ottawa and Toronto open with victories at home. Ottawa over Montreal, Toronto over Hamilton by 1 point. So that's the way they stand in the East. In the West, it's a 3-way tie. Saskatchewan on top. The BC Lions and Edmonton Eskimos tied 1-0. Winnipeg 0-1. Calgary 0-2 in a less than successful opening week. Coming up at halftime, Steve Armitage has returned from World Cup 86 in Mexico. No rest for the wicked. Steve is back to Canadian football tonight. And at halftime, he'll have a preview of tonight's important game between BC and Edmonton at Commonwealth Stadium. We'll have a look at the CFL Stars of the Week and update Wimbledon. The women's semifinals play today, along with the national and regional news update. The Blue Jays continue their search. Against Tom Clements and last year's #1 offense. The Saskatchewan Roughriders at Winnipeg Blue Bombers from Winnipeg Stadium. Live Saturday at 8:30 Eastern on CBC.
Well, I would much prefer to be watching the pretty cheerleading halftime show for you, including from tonight's other CFL encounter, the British Columbia Lions in Edmonton. We'll also take a look at the first Stars of the Week in the Canadian Football League. Bernie Ratchley, Dean Dorsey, as they head to the dressing room with a 13-1 lead. The Ottawa Rough Riders started slowly but took control in the second quarter of this ball game and now lead by 12 as we go to Don Martin at CFL Control.
All right, thanks, Don. The Riders a good first half. Fans in Hamilton getting a little impatient with the defending Eastern Division champions. Coming up at halftime, we'll have a look at the BC Lions, Edmonton Eskimos, and how they stack up. We'll join Steve Armitage for that. We'll also review the CFL Stars of the Week for Week 1. A CFL on CBC at our control center. At the half in Hamilton, the Ottawa Rough Riders on a Mark Barus touchdown and 2 Dean Dorsey field goals lead 13-1. Let's take a look at the standings as they began play tonight. Ottawa and Toronto on top in the East, both with opening night victories. In the West, it's a three-way tie at the top. Saskatchewan, BC, and Edmonton. Bringing up tonight's action, the Lions and Eskimos. Steve Armitage is back from World Cup '86 with a preview. First of all, Steve, welcome back.
Thanks, Don. It's good to be back home and back in the CFL. This time last week, we had just completed the semifinals of World Cup '86, leading to that thrilling final between Argentina and West Germany. Ron Lancaster, I come back home, and I find that we've got a superstar in the CFL. We had a superstar in World Cup '86, and Diego Maradona, who did everything for Argentina. Merv Fernandez is doing everything for the BC Lions.
He was a Shenley Award winner last year. This year he decided he's going to punt and also run with the football more. And I think if we search the films enough, I'm sure he threw a block someplace. Steve, I'm looking forward to the football game. Glad to see you're home. You look good. The water must have agreed with you.
It did. Ronnie, you're going to guarantee me one thing. The game will not end with the dreaded penalty shootout.
We will have no penalty kicks, and we will not have overtime, even though it's in the CFL.
Well, I can't think of a better game to come home to. It's the BC Lions against the Edmonton Eskimos here at Commonwealth Games Stadium in Edmonton tonight. It's a good one, and it's good to be back in Canada and the CFL. Don?
Thanks, Steve. Maybe you should have brought Diego Maradona back with you to help the BC Lions in the absence of Louis Passaglia. All right, Week 1 was a great one in the CFL. Let's take a look at the men who helped make it outstanding as we review the selections for the CFL Stars of the Week. Chris Sigler, number 38 of the Ottawa Rough Riders, wins the defensive category with a record-tying 4 interceptions plus a touchdown in Ottawa's home opener. Another rider, number 76, Lloyd Lewis, earned Lineman Star of the Week. Back-to-back sacks of Montreal's Joe Barnes stalled an Alouette drive to secure the Rider lead, an ultimate 20-11 victory. The multi-talented Mervyn Fernandez captured the offensive star with a performance that included running, receiving, punting, and even passing. His contribution was instrumental in a 28-17 BC Lion win over their West Division rivals, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Chris Sigler stars on defense for Ottawa. The Riders' Lloyd Lewis is the lineman of the week, while Mervyn Fernandez of BC, the offensive star of Week 1 in the CFL. No question about it, many outstanding performances and many outstanding plays, but none more memorable than the one executed by the Edmonton Eskimos, a last-second touchdown that wins it all in Calgary. Let's take a look back at the Eskimos' opening night. It happened in Calgary on the CFL's opening night. 7 seconds left on the clock. The Stampeders in front 20-14, but Matt Dunnigan sacked 12 times in the game, gets up off the mat and goes deep to Stephon Jones, and Jones hauls it in for the game-tying touchdown, setting up the winning convert from Tom Dixon, disappointing 27,000 Stampeder fans on opening night. Matt Dunnigan, one throw left, it's worth another look. 56 yards to Stephon Jones, the highlight of Week 1 as Edmonton wins it on the road, stealing a 1-point win from Calgary. And of course,
And 13-1 is the score. The Ottawa Rough Riders leading the Hamilton Tiger Cats after 30 minutes of play. The only touchdown of the first half scored by Mark Barus, wide open in the end zone on a pass from J.C. Watt. Statistically, in that first half, the Ottawa Rough Riders had the advantage with 14 first downs compared to just 7 for Hamilton. And the Ottawa Rough Riders, as one would expect, leading by 12, dominating every statistical department with 201 yards in total offense. And there was a sad note in the Canadian Football League this past week. On Saturday in Regina, Don King, who has been associated with the Canadian Football League for many, many years, passed away. He was a former supervisor of officials in the CFL, and we extend our condolences to the King family. The situation for the Ottawa Rough Riders, Chuck Ely, in the first half that quarterbacks enjoy an opportunity to play catch with a receiver, and that was J.C. Watts and Mark Barus.
Well, Mark Barus had an outstanding first half. He caught 8, 9 passes and caught one for the TD, which was the major score in the game so far.
Well, he was certainly wide open in the end zone. How does a receiver get that wide open? A blown assignment?
Well, it's a blown assignment. I think J.C. Watts was looking to his right, and all of a sudden he turns around to his left, and there's Mark Barus. As you can see here on the replay, J.C. Watts is going to get the ball and drop back, and when he goes back to the situation, he's looking to his right. He had most of the receivers to his right, and he couldn't find them, and he turns around. The defensive back evidently left Mark Barus, and he was wide open in the end zone.
That touchdown by Mark Barus, and he has already caught passes for over 100 yards in this game.
And as you see, he's going to catch another pass into the flat. He's becoming very effective in the flat, catching the short passes and picking up extra yards as he runs up the field. He's a good little receiver at 5'9", and he has good hands, and he's been J.C. Watt's #1 receiver all afternoon.
Well, he was shaken up late in that first half, but fortunately for the Ottawa Rough Riders, Mark Barus has returned to the field and will be there to play this second half.
And the big key for the Ottawa team has been their containment of Ken Hobart. I think Ken Hobart is an excellent quarterback, but he likes to get outside. They've stopped him from getting outside and been able to put the pressure on him in the middle. And as long as they can do that and cause him to pull that ball down and not to find the receivers and not to get outside, they're going to be able to contain that Hamilton offense all night long.
Hobart, so far, has been ineffective in throwing the football, and that's something that the Hamilton Tiger Cats will have to improve on in the second half.
Well, I'm sure they've gone in and looked at the problems that they had and tried to make some adjustments. Ken Hobart has got to call some passes to the receivers and get the ball upfield by throwing.
So the second half is on the basis of what we've seen from the Ottawa Rough Riders. You look very, very strong. Good balance to your attack this year, Joe.
Well, I think that we are running our offense certainly better than we did a year ago, but if we didn't, then we'd be darn poor coaches. But I think we have a good receiving core. I think our running backs and fullback are good quality guys. We should get better if we don't screw them up.
Joe, it's Chuck Ely talking to you. How are you doing?
How's it going, Chuck?
Very good. I would just talk about your defense. Your defense played very well in containing Ken Hobart. Did you do anything special? Was there any special attack against him?
The only thing that we did against Hobart is he scares us to death every time he goes back, that he'll pull it down and run. And the only thing we did was try and emphasize that on a daily and actually on a play-by-play basis in practice this week.
During the course of the telecast tonight, Joe, I made the remark that I thought Jim Reed may have carried the ball a lot more tonight than normally we see Jim Reed carry the ball.
I told Jim at the beginning of the season that he was a fullback. We had used him as a blocker. People were
Joe,
we fully intended to use him as a running back and as a...
Joe, I know you're anxious to get to the dressing room. Congratulations on your win tonight, and we'll see you next week when you face the Calgary Stampeders at Lansdowne Park.
Thanks a lot, men. Appreciate it.
So Joe Moss is obviously happy with the way his Ottawa Rough Riders have started this 1986 season, Chuck, and from what we saw tonight, good balance for the Ottawa Rough Riders in their passing attack and their ground game.
Well, they did a good job. J.C. Watt came through and played with the consistency that we said he had to have. He passed well, and with Joe calling the plays or whoever called the plays, you know it's a combination of those coaches as well as the quarterback calling those plays, and he executed it well. They had a mixture of running game as well as passing game, which kept the Hamilton defense off balance, and that was very good for J.C. Watts and the Ottawa Rough Riders.
18-2, the final score tonight for the Ottawa Rough Riders over Hamilton. And right now, let's meet our Carling O'Keefe Game Stars. Today's Carling O'Keefe Game Stars are Mark Barus, selected as Offensive Game Star, and Darrell Nicholson, selected as Defensive Game Star. Each will receive a Royal Canadian Mint 1-ounce gold coin, presented by the Nikon One Touch, the simplest 35mm Nikon ever, and by Tilly, bringing together quality leather goods and travel wear. Mark Bruce and Darrell Nicholson, congratulations. Mark, I think tonight you established an Ottawa club record, 13 receptions, 173 yards, and the game's only touchdown. How do you feel?
Well, pretty good. It was a lot of fun when you get to catch the ball that much.
You took some punishment earlier in the ball game. You were forced to the sideline. What was the problem? Did you take a hit in the back?
No, I just got a little bit of rib injury, and it was hurting me when I was breathing hard.
Obviously, things are okay now.
Yeah, feeling good.
A tough night for you. Not only did you take that hit, but you also lost your sweater, number 9.
Yeah, I kind of got caught from behind. I asked the equipment manager if he was handing out tearaways or not.
What happened on that touchdown grab of yours that enabled you to get so wide open?
They were just in man coverage to the backside, and they got mixed up, and two guys went with the same person and left me wide open.
Well, as we take a look at the play, J.C. Watts was looking off to his right and then over to the left, and there you were all alone in the end zone.
Yeah, two guys right there both took Reggie butts, and that's the way to take them easy. It's nice when you get them that easy.
Mark, you were catching a lot of passes in the flat. Was there anything in the Hamilton defense that you had a particular game plan to catch that way?
No, that's just a run and shoot. You throw it until they stop it, and we kept throwing it, and they never stopped it.
A little early in the ball game, you had some problems getting your offense on track, though.
Yeah, we've had a tendency to be a little slow starting, but we got on track pretty good.
I'm sure you'd like to see the ball 13 times every game.
Yeah, it makes it a lot of fun.
Mark Bruce, congratulations on being chosen our Carling O'Keefe Offensive Game Star. 13 receptions, 173 yards, and 1 carry for 19 yards. Defensively, Darrell Nicholson had a big ball game from his middle linebacking position, our defensive game star. A fumble recovery, you stripped the ball carrier on one occasion and made 9 key tackles. Darrell, what type of game plan did the Ottawa Rough Riders come in here with in an effort to contain Ken Hobart?
Well, we really wanted to get after him and keep him contained and put a lot of pressure on him. And we just wanted to go out and really hustle at every play, everybody on the football, and we accomplished that today.
Darrell, did you feel that you had to do a lot of blitzing to contain him, or was it just from the fact that your defensive ends were going to try to contain him?
Well, we tried to get our defensive ends contain him, and everybody really getting a good push up front and getting good coverage in the back, and hopefully he would either throw an interception or our front would get a hold to him.
Well, your defense is really playing together as a unit. You're making a lot of gang tackles, and you're doing well out there. Congratulations on your win.
Thank you.
I'm sure that you may not be aware of the fact, but the last regular season game that Ottawa won here at Ivor Wynne Stadium was back in 1978. You weren't in the CFL then, Darrell, but this is a nice one to get under your belts.
It sure is, and it really feels good. You know, we really worked hard in practice, and all the work paid off here today.
Darrell Nicholson, our Carling O'Keefe defensive game star. Congratulations. Our offensive game star, Mark Bruce, with 13 receptions and a touchdown in tonight's ball game. So the Ottawa Rough Riders with an 18-2 win over the Hamilton Tiger Cats here at Ivor Wynne Stadium. Right now, let's go to CFL Control and Don Martin.
Thanks, Don. Here's the story in Edmonton. The Eskimos playing the Lions surprisingly tough. Second quarter, 19 yards, Matt Dunnigan over the middle to Stefan Jones, 15-3 Eskimos. And on their very next possession, Eskimos are firing again. Again, it's Matt Dunnigan. Almost as many touchdowns this week as sacks last week. This one's to Tom Richards. It's 5 yards. Tom splashes into a 22-3 lead. It's in the first half as they continue to play at Commonwealth Stadium in Edmonton.
Thank you, Don. And 22-3. Edmonton leading BC after what we saw from the BC Lions last week in their season opener against Winnipeg. Are you surprised?
Well, I'm surprised at the score. I know Edmonton has the capabilities of playing with any of the teams out west, but the score 22-3 is very much a surprise.
A good thing for the Canadian Football League if there is that type of activity where any given week any team is capable of winning.
Definitely. You want to have that type of balance in both East and West. I think you're going to have it in the East as well. You know, they may not score as many points, but both all the defenses in the East are playing well right now, and it could be very close in the East as well as in the West.
Well, Chuck, the Ottawa Rough Riders, temporarily at least, are all alone atop the Eastern Division standings with their second straight win. Tomorrow night, the Toronto Argonauts go against the Montreal Alouettes.
Yeah, that's going to be a big game. Sure, Toronto wants to try to get their 4 points and be ahead as well with Ottawa. but Montreal has something to say about that, and they're going to make it very tough for them. Toronto Argonauts have come up with a big win last week against the Hamilton Tiger Cats, and Montreal lost to Ottawa. So both of those teams want to score some points and not to let Ottawa get out too far in front of them.
Well, Ottawa has to be happy with the balance in their attack. There has to be concern in Hamilton. The fact that last week the passing attack was stymied somewhat against Toronto, and it did absolutely nothing tonight against the Ottawa Rough Riders.
Well, I think there's some concern there. It's a long season, and there's a lot of time to adjust to that, but you don't want to get too far behind, regardless of how many games you have in the season, and 4 points behind right now is not a good position that Hamilton wanted to be in.
Well, the Hamilton Tiger Cats a week ago mainly had an offense revolving around the running of quarterback Ken Hobart. Much the same story tonight.
Yeah, well, it was a good game as far as the run was concerned.
So the Hamilton Tiger Cats lose their second straight game. The Ottawa Rough Riders win their second straight. Once again, the final score, Ottawa 18, Hamilton 2. Now let's go to Don Martin at CFL Control.
All right, thanks, Don. The Tiger Cats off to a slow start. Remember, they had one last year and made it all the way to the Grey Cup. Let's take a look at those standings now. After tonight's game, you see Ottawa on top, Toronto, Montreal, and Hamilton in that order. Let's take a look at the score out west. The BC Lions trailing Edmonton 22-3 in the second quarter. The Blue Jays tonight in Boston.
I'll show you some CFL action today. You saw earlier this evening, Ottawa defeats Hamilton 18-2, and right now, BC and Edmonton are playing, and BC is leading 33-3. But let me show you a couple highlights. First of all, let's go to Hamilton right now. I'll show you all the points that Ottawa needed to defeat Hamilton. It's first and goal. Watts looks right, throws left. Marc LaRouche gets the TD. That gives Ottawa the lead. They never look back. Look, a nice punt return here. This is Wayne Lee out of the University of New Brunswick from the 10-yard line all the way down, but he trips on his own feet. Nice run back. Okay, let's go to BC and Edmonton right now. Matt Dunnigan right here. Drops back, passes to Marco Sinkar. That's the TD. That made it 7-0 at that point. It's 33-7, so really, Edmonton doesn't need any more points. Looks like they're going to win it. Well, CFL football, that game is over. The score is now 20-12. Toronto over Montreal. Let's show you a little bit of the action, all that Toronto needed. Montreal changed their name this year, back to the Alouettes. Remember that? Okay, Conridge Holloway here passes to the rookie Joyner. That gets the ball down to the 10. Conridge Holloway again had a pretty good night until he got hurt. He passes this one to Craig Ellis. Craig Ellis, watch that, takes it in the end zone. Toronto leads 7-0. Conridge Holloway gets hurt, and he has to be escorted out of the game. But here's how Toronto gets the next points to put him in front. Okay, Joyner, the rookie, with a block punt in the end zone. Darrell Wilson falls on the ball. It's 14-1. Final score 20-12. That's our CFL.
There are some exciting new faces in the Canadian Football League this season, and two of them will be in action tonight. Harry Tuttle of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and Bobby Johnson of the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Johnson made his CFL debut on Sunday and ran for 116 yards against the Calgary Stampeders. Coach Jack Goda feels his style is particularly suited to the Canadian game.
Oh, I don't think there's any doubt about that. He's one of those good running backs that seems to find a weakness in a defense and just turns it upfield. Also, he catches the ball well coming out of the backfield. We got a good complete tailback in Bobby.
Clemson product Perry Tuttle has some big shoes to fill as a replacement for Jeff Boyd, but last week against BC, he indicated he's ready to do the job with 5 receptions for 79 yards and a touchdown. Coach Cal Murphy is enthused with his play.
Perry's a pretty good football player, Don. He has been catching the ball very well, and he started out strongly at training camp, and then as the preseason games came along, he showed that he could do it in ball games, worked hard on the backside of plays, blocking and that type of thing. And since the Vancouver game, or game in Vancouver, he's worked even harder.
Johnson and Tuttle could be two of the big offensive threats tonight as the Saskatchewan Roughriders face the Winnipeg Blue Bombers at Winnipeg Stadium. Live from Winnipeg Stadium, the Saskatchewan Roughriders tonight will be attempting to spoil the home opener of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Hi, everyone. I'm Don Whitman, along with Ron Lancaster. And tonight, Ron, the Saskatchewan Roughriders, attempting to make it 2 wins in a row after winning their home opener against the Calgary Stampeders. Will they do much differently against Winnipeg tonight?
Well, I know Coach Jack Goda doesn't want to, but the big thing he's going to do tonight is pick up where the BC Lions started it last week and going to try to go after quarterback Tom Clements. Now, they will do it in a little bit of different fashion. What they will try to do is mix up the blocking of St. Out tonight, Winnipeg. But last week, Eddie Lowe would come outside and eat the block of the halfback, which allows number 29, Fran McDermott, to come and get a real good shot on quarterback Rick Johnson. Now, no quarterback likes to take these kind of hits. When he doesn't see it coming, he's in trouble, and that means trouble for Tom Clements, the quarterback of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. The big work this week and the biggest thing the Bombers have to do is to keep quarterback Tom Clements on his feet.
Offensive line blocking undoubtedly then was a priority of Winnipeg's preparation for this game.
All week, every practice.
And the Winnipeg Blue Bombers tonight had better be prepared for a slot back who likes to be in motion when he hits that line of scrimmage, Saskatchewan's Ray Elgard.
Well, I'll say, and he's 6'3" and 225 pounds, and he's a great target across the middle, and when he does catch the football, he can run over those small 170-pound defensive backs. So offensively, Elgard has got to be dealt with. This man with the green shoes now, Nick Hebler, playing his first game for the Saskatchewan Roughriders, traded in the orange ones, said he likes the green ones better. Talking to him before the game, he said he's actually nervous, and you would think an 8-year veteran would never be nervous. It's just another game, but he said he's a little edgy.
All fired up and ready to play, and with those green shoes, Hebner looks like the world's biggest leprechaun.
Well, you tell him that, Doc.
The Winnipeg Blue Bombers have a couple of key people as well. Let's talk about them.
Well, they have to get their running back, Willard Reeves, number 38, involved in the offense. Last week, he only had 44 yards rushing, but they've got to get him running the football, and they have got to get him able for Tom Clements' play-action pass by faking to him. He's got to be a bigger factor in the offense than he was against the BC Lions. Newcomer James West, and I say newcomer because he's now an inside linebacker. His whole career, he had been an outside linebacker. All of a sudden, he comes to Winnipeg. They move him inside. Now, it doesn't sound like a big move to people at home, but when you get on the inside, there's a heck of a lot more action in there. But, you know, he's a very, very tough, punishing tackler, but he's got great speed. So he adds to a strength, and he'll just strengthen that defense down.
Well, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers have not lost at home to Saskatchewan for 4 years. They hope that trend continues tonight, and they're also hoping that Trevor Kennard will get the 3 points to hit the 1,000-point total, and that Willard Reeves will run for 2 yards to make 4,000 yards. And David Shaw, who was injured against BC, will be back at his customary cornerback position tonight against the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Something of a miraculous recovery for the veteran David Shaw. We'll be back with the opening kickoff, Saskatchewan and Winnipeg, here at Winnipeg Stadium. But right now, let's go to CFL Control, and here's Brian Williams.
Thank you, Don. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to CFL Control in Toronto as we wrap up the second week of this 1986 season. We take a look at the conference standings beginning in the West. Winnipeg with a win tonight, trying to move into a tie with Saskatchewan and BC. Of course, the Riders can move into a first-place tie with Edmonton. In the Eastern Conference, it is Toronto and the Ottawa Roughriders all tied up for first place. Toronto winning last night at the Olympic Stadium, Ottawa winning Thursday in Hamilton. Now, coming up on a busy halftime show, Doug Mitchell, the commissioner, joins me in the studio. We'll have highlights from Toronto's win last night in Montreal.
Mark Nelson, who will be coming in, the son of Roger Nelson. And then, of course, with Saskatchewan, you have Mark Ernest, who is the son of Ted Ernest, a former teammate of yours. And Mike Anderson, playing that center spot, is the son of Paul Anderson, who played with Saskatchewan 53 to 58.
Yeah, Mike got the opportunity to start at that center position when Willie Thomas was traded, and they kind of hated to trade Thomas. They really liked him, but they got Hebler for him, you know, so they had to do it.
Successful, he will go over the 1,000-point total for his CFL career. This kick will come from 32 yards away. It's good, and Trevor Kennard has a niche in the CFL record book as the Winnipeg Blue Bombers move in front by 10 with 5:44 remaining in this opening quarter. The little man, Trevor Kennard, has certainly made a major contribution to the success of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers since coming to the club out of the University of Alberta.
Boy, he sure has. You know, it's amazing with his size. You know, he really isn't very big, but he runs with the football on fakes, and he can throw the football because he was a quarterback, and then, well, everybody knows he can kick it.
He'll retire as the result of a neck injury down on the sidelines, and he is doing some work for the Winnipeg radio broadcast and also involved in his television show here in Winnipeg that is seen in many parts of the country. Body Talk, the name of it, on the CBC television network. Good hold for Willard Reeves.
Spotted early, and the quarterback drops back to throw. This is no man's land. Nobody should come in there and bother the quarterback. Watch Tom Clements. He takes his drop. Now he steps straight up. Look how much room he's got. And that's the result. Great throw, excellent catch.
Poplawski
doesn't happen, and look who's the only guy there. Fran McDermott, and he was fooled just long enough for Tom to fall over the goal line. So 30-0. It's getting tough. They finally got a little bit of pressure on him, and it wasn't in time because that's only a 5-yard pattern. As we said, it's hard to sack him. He put it right on the money. You're going to see him get a little bit of pressure up there from I think it was number 76, although it could be 75, but he's going to get hit. But there's the catch. Nothing to it. Throw it right at him. Clear it out underneath. Poplawski takes off, opens the area, and then you run right into it and catch it.
James Murphy may very well make good on his pregame boast of 3 touchdowns. He now has 2. And with the point after by Trevor Kennard, it's now a 38-0 game. Toronto.
Show coming up. CFL Commissioner Doug Mitchell will join me in the studio. All of Argo highlights from last night. Martina Navarrete. Saturday night. Welcome back to CFL Control in Toronto. Winnipeg is blowing out Saskatchewan. We'll have more football in just a minute. We break now for National. Will join us in just a minute. Let's take you back to last night where the Toronto Argonauts defeated the Alouettes at the Olympic Stadium. Disappointing crowd, just over 13,000. We will ask the commissioner about that in just a minute. First quarter, Holloway to Craig Ellis, 8-yard touchdown. Big night for Ellis, 4 passes, 39 yards, 19 carries, 72 yards. Bad news, though, for Toronto in the first quarter. Holloway injuring his left knee that caused him to miss 9 games last year. No word yet on whether he'll play next Friday in BC. Second quarter, Mike McTagg is all set to punt, but hang on. Ken Joyner blocks it. Darrell Wilson recovers for the Toronto touchdown. The Argonauts had won the game, it turned out, in the first half. Fourth quarter, Brian Renson replaced Joe Barnes, hands off to Wes Cooper for the touchdown. They had a 2-point convert. The rains came. It was too little, too late. The Argos winning by 8 points. So we take a look at the Eastern standings. Most people figured it would be the other way around after 2 games. Ottawa and Toronto undefeated and tied for first place. And again, the Western Conference, the way the Bombers are going, it looks like they will move into a second-place tie with Saskatchewan and the BC Lions. Welcome back to CFL Control in Toronto. Joining me in our studios is CFL Commissioner Doug Mitchell. Following tonight, you will be 2 games into the regular season, 16 more to go. Normally, you'd just be starting the regular season. That's one of many changes, and I'm interested in your feelings as you are now 2 games into the season.
Brian, I think we're very satisfied with what's happened so far going into this game tonight, at least. Saskatchewan Rough Riders, the Edmonton Eskimos, the Toronto Argonauts, and the Ottawa Rough Riders are all undefeated, and I think that competitive balance that we want to get between the divisions and between all the teams, I think, is beginning to show so far this season.
Let me ask you about competitive balance. I think the questions I'm most often asked by fans are the lack of big-name stars. They don't have players they can identify with like in the old days. And the other thing is the competitive balance, in particular east to west.
I think when you look at it, probably in the past 3 or 4 years, we have had some problems with player identity. But if you look at the all-star team from last year, out of 26 positions, there's 23 back with the same teams this year. 1 has been traded, 1 has retired, and 1 has left the league. So I feel very strongly that we're starting to get back to that player identity that we so much require. We feel very positive that we need it, that it's part of the league, and we recognize the comments from the fan that they want to see more player identity and more stars in the league.
Maybe there's a message there. The players change the least in the cities where the teams are successful. The teams that are in trouble are the ones that seem to farm them in and out like it's going out of style.
Yeah, I think that happens. There's no question about it. You never hear it in Winnipeg, BC, or Edmonton, and also Hamilton, because when they have winning records, and that's part of the problem that we've had in the past, is that we've had a lot of teams with records under 500. Obviously, we'd like to have all the teams with a 9-9 record, 500 record, winning all of their home games, but that hasn't happened in the last couple of years.
What about competitive balance, east to west?
I think this year, from what we've seen so far, the teams in the East, Ottawa and Toronto, obviously haven't played interlocking games yet, but I think that we're getting closer to that competitive balance. Last season, on the first 19 games, the East won 9 and the West won 10, and then for a period, I think it was about 6 weeks, the East didn't win a game against the West. So they were very close for the first half of the season, and I think we'll see a better competitive balance this season.
Let me ask you about 2 cities in particular. Calgary had a big crowd. I believe it was 27,000 for the opening game against Edmonton. They're 0-2. Are the fans going to stay in Calgary, stay in the ballpark? And the other city is Montreal, where you have to be very disappointed at the crowd last night. I believe it was under 14,000.
Well, I look at Calgary. I think they've redone what they had to do. They have a real first-class professional organization in there now, and it's true they're 0-2, but they came oh so close against the Edmonton Eskimos. I believe the fans are still with them and will stay with them because they've been so competitive, particularly in that first game. The Montreal situation, Norm Kimball is there. He won 5 Grey Cups with the Edmonton Eskimos, and that didn't happen by good luck. And I have tremendous faith and confidence in Norm. I think he's a first-class operator, and he'll give the Montreal Alouettes the direction that they need.
You won't say it, but I will. The Expos, I don't think they had over 20,000 fans for any game they played against the New York Mets, and they were in contention. Maybe it's more the city of Montreal than football. Maybe it has to be turned on.
I think they're very sophisticated fans. They want to see winning, exciting sports, and when the Alouettes are winning and exciting, there's no doubt in my mind that they'll be back, and there's no doubt in my mind that Norm Kimball will make them that way.
I'm smiling because another question I'm asked is, what about Doug Mitchell's future? I was in Calgary yesterday. I think the Herald was saying you might be going. I think the Globe says today you're staying. What's going on?
That's a really dull and boring league for people to be commenting on my contract. No, I've got a contract that's still in existence. It still has a year to run. We've had some conversations. We've moved down to Toronto. I'm very fortunate. My family love it down here, so that a lot of times when you make a move, your family don't like it, but my wife's very happy. My son loves it down here. He's playing hockey and baseball, so we've had some discussions. Yes.
It's a yes. You're staying.
We'll certainly negotiate a new contract.
All right, Doug, thank you very much. They're signaling me we're out of time. Our thanks to CFL Commissioner Doug Mitchell. Right now, let's return to the stadium in Winnipeg.
38-0 the halftime score, and that statistical story pretty much tells the tale of this game. 331 Winnipeg yards, 39 for Saskatchewan. Clements, 20 of 23 completions. Ron Lancaster, I don't think I've ever seen Tom Clements sharper than he has been in that first half.
It's almost been an ideal game for any quarterback, a 38-0 lead and a no-hitter. He's only been hit once. That's the ideal situation.
Well, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers lead by 38. Not much the Saskatchewan Roughriders can do. I don't think they have any hope of winning the ball game, but salvage some respectability in the second half.
Well, with the way it started, let's take a look at the way things went and find out how they got in this predicament. Watch how fast Tom Clement dumps it. Just stands up, throws it to Poplawski. He makes a good move and beats Glenn Suter and stands up, goes into the end zone. This makes it 17-0. Now, we saw him get rid of the ball quick there. Now watch him. This is another touchdown to Joe Poplawski a little bit later. Watch the time he has to throw the football. He stopped. Now he's looking. Now he steps up. Glenn Suter misjudges it right over his head, and Poplawski's got a second, 24-0. Then Clements scored, made it 31. Now we're going to see he's finally going to get a little bit of pressure from James Walker, number 75, is going to hit him, but too late. What? Joe Poplawski clears it out. Murphy comes underneath. By the time that Walker can get there and hit him, that's the way it goes. But when you're having a little bit of trouble, and I'd say this is a whole lot of trouble, but all you can do in a locker room is say is, let's win the second half. Forget it's 38-0. Let's just try to score some points. If we have to beat them 7-0 in the last 30 minutes, let's do it. Let's salvage something out of here. See if we can move the football and show Winnipeg we can play.
Well, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers with Tom Clements might make a quarterbacking change. What about Saskatchewan?
Well, I would think I would. I would definitely put another quarterback in. 38-0, you're not going to win it. You might as well get your backups ready, and I think that John Hufnagel will probably see action for them. But, yeah, why not? 38-0, it's not going to have anything to do with it.
We'll find out what they decide to do in the second half when we return to Winnipeg Stadium. Is getting loose at that Rough Rider bench, so that is perhaps an indication that he will be coming into the ball game in the second half.
Yeah, he must have been the last one out of the locker room. Last one out starts. But now he's going to get his opportunity to play, and I imagine we'll see John Hufnagel. We'll see what Winnipeg does right away, but why not? 38-0, let's get them all in.
It's celebration time.
He's going to try to get wide. It looks like a return set up to the wide side, and all of a sudden he turns and finds a hole, picks up a couple key blocks, and now it's just speed. From here on, it's his speed against theirs. No contest. McGrath had a shot, but he didn't have the speed to catch him.
82 yards on the punt return for Kevin Nealis. And Trevor Kennard adds the point after to make it a 53-0 game.
take another look at it. Looks like he wants to go wide. Then all of a sudden, he turns around. He picked up a key block in there from, I think, number 52, and now it's just a race. Nothing to this game, is there?
Well, now I think that Winnipeg defensive squad will be endeavoring to keep the Rough Riders off the board, because this would be a club record for the highest shutout ever recorded. Their previous best was a 36-0 win over Montreal back in 1982, and they also were thumped 53-0 by Montreal in a game played in 1967. And it's now 53-0, Winnipeg leading Saskatchewan. A total rout tonight here at Winnipeg Stadium, and unexpected.
Oh, very much so. I know I was expecting a very physical, hard-fought football game, and I figured maybe 7 points difference. I didn't really see it being a blowout. I think when you come in off a win, your first game, you're going to be flying high, and you know Winnipeg wants to come back after a loss, so I thought it'd be a heck of a game.
Calgary, and then an impressive performance on Thursday night against the British Columbia Lions.
What I was most impressed with was the play of Matt Dunnigan, the way he only ran the ball, I think, 3 times, and he just stood in there. He threw that football very crisply and right on the money, and boy, they had the BC Lions confused, and then turning on the other side, the Eskimo defense shut them down.
2nd and 7 for the Rough Riders. The fans here at Winnipeg Stadium want that defensive unit to shut them out. The pass is intercepted by Warren Dennis. He fumbles the ball. Winnipeg manages to retain possession as Scott Flagel gets it. Out. It's short, and it's taken by Scott Flagel, and Scott Flagel tries to get to the outside. He does!
I haven't had the opportunity to see them, but they must be playing well.
They did play well against the Hamilton Tiger Cats, and J.C. Watts was particularly sharp as that Ottawa quarterback, and Mark Baruch hauled in 13 passes. Trevor Kennard with the field goal for a 56-0 Winnipeg lead. In case you're wondering, the most points by one team in one game, 82. Montreal 82-14 over Hamilton in 1956. Then 67. Hamilton 67-21 over Saskatchewan. That was in 1962.
That's the night Joe Zuger threw 8 touchdowns in his first start for the Hamilton Tiger Cats. I remember that. I was with Ottawa, and then Saskatchewan had beaten us on Saturday, and he went into, then I guess it was Hamilton Civic Stadium, and Zuger went crazy.
Number 3 on the list is 65. Winnipeg 65-25 over Ottawa in 1984. Harold Smith to Dennis, stopped at the 40-yard line, a gain of 5. Joe Paopao spent 6 years with the British Columbia Lions, traded to the Saskatchewan Rough Riders. Throughout his career, he has had a history of injuries. They have reduced his effectiveness. Eddie Lowe and Sean Kehoe. Kehoe got a pretty good, Lowe got a pretty good shot in there as Kehoe was upset. He reacted. Jack Goda trying to keep Lowe out of any further confrontation. There's a penalty flag down. The Saskatchewan Rough Riders here at Winnipeg Stadium by a 56-0 score as Jack Goda comes across to congratulate Cal Murphy. And it will be a long plane ride home for the Winnipeg, or the Saskatchewan Rough Riders. The Winnipeg Blue Bombers struck early. James Murphy and Joe Poplawski scoring 2 touchdowns each. A ball game that saw Trevor Kennard surpass the 1,000-point total for his CFL career, the earliest that any player has ever done it in a career, and Willard Reeves cracked the 4,000-yard rushing barrier in his CFL career. Cal Murphy has now joined us down on the sidelines. Coach, an explosive performance. We made the comment we've never seen Tom Clements much better in a football game than he was tonight.
No, he really had an outstanding game, and he kept them off balance the whole first half. And, you know, when he's got it going, I don't think there's anybody any better because he really can wheel and deal when things are going well.
Cal, you were concerned about the blocking for Tom Clements last week in BC, but in that first half tonight, I think he only took one hit, and that was on Murphy's touchdown. I don't think he could have got a much better job out of those linemen, do you?
No, I think we got excellent blocking, and especially in the second quarter, they were really coming with a lot of blitzes, and that's when we started a half roll, and we picked them up very well. And well, as I told you before the game, we worked hard on it this week and spent some extra time at it.
Well, that hard work certainly paid off in dividends. 56-0 the final score. Cal Murphy, congratulations.
Thanks very much. Okay.
So the Winnipeg Blue Bombers even their record at 1-1, and we'll return after we pause for this message. Today's Carling O'Keefe Game Stars are Tom Clements, selected as Offensive Player of the Game, and Stan Mikolas, selected as Defensive Player of the Game. Each will receive a Royal Canadian Mint 1-ounce gold coin, presented by the Nikon One Touch, the simplest Nikon 35mm ever, and Tilly, quality leather goods and travel wear. Gentlemen, a very impressive performance tonight. Tom Clements, have you ever held a hotter hand through 30 minutes of football?
I don't know, really. It was a good game all the way around. We've had some pretty good offensive games here in Winnipeg over the last few years, and this was certainly one of our better ones.
Tom, I always had a belief that an ideal game for a quarterback is a 40-0 score and a no-hitter. Now, you only got 38 in the first half, but did you get hit at all?
I got hit a few times after I threw the ball, but you have to expect that. But for the most part, I got great protection, and we were able to run the ball a little bit and throw the short passes, throw some long ones, and I think we had them mixed up a couple of times, and anytime we can keep them guessing, it's to our advantage.
Well, Tom, you were taking that very short drop. You were getting rid of that ball quickly. Was this the scheme you went into the game with?
Yeah, it was. We felt we could hit what we call hot passes, which we throw to the slot backs as they come off the line real quick, and that's the first touchdown to Joe Poplawski. That's what that was. I just took one step back and hit him. He caught the ball and avoided a couple of tacklers and got into the end zone. But that was our plan. We wanted to hit the quick passes to the slots, to the wideouts, and then go a little deeper on them.
You finally got Willard Reeves involved a little bit tonight. Last week in BC, he just, you know, you never got your running game going. Tonight you got it going. How important is he to your offense?
Well, he's very important. Last week when we couldn't run the ball, or we didn't run the ball that well, then the defense knew we had to throw it, and that made it difficult. But when Willard is on his game and he's rushing the ball and getting yardage, it makes calling the game a lot easier for me.
Well, it was an offensive show tonight, but our defensive game star was Stan Mikolas, who plays that nose guard position. Stan, you came through there one time. You just simply pushed over quarterback Joe Pow.
Yeah, it was a surprise to me, too. I got through there, and I thought he threw the ball away, so I knocked him down. I looked back, and he had the ball. I was pretty excited about that one.
Stan, how about your play this year? You feel much more comfortable now at that nose guard position, don't you?
Yeah, I sure do. I feel comfortable this year. It was a slow start with BC, but I think as the year progresses, myself and the whole defense are going to get better.
It seemed like, and just from looking out from up here, I know it's never right, but it looked like you guys really didn't have to work that hard tonight. The offense was on the field so much you got a lot of rest. How do you think?
Well, the offense did a very good job tonight. Yeah, well, when we were out there, it looked as if we weren't doing much, but but that takes a lot of energy to push that pocket back. The whole defensive line and the linebackers did one good job today, I tell you.
As the game progressed, were you fellas thinking shutout?
Yeah, we sure were, and especially when we intercepted in the end zone there. I tell you, it felt good to see that shutout.
All right, Stan Mikolas, our Carling O'Keefe defensive game star, and Tom Clements, our offensive game star. Clements with 20 of 23 completions in just 30 minutes of work. Not a bad night.
No, I think if quarterback had his wish, he'd like to have that every week.
Well, it certainly gave Winnipeg an opportunity to give all three quarterbacks some work. John Hufnagel into the third quarter, and Homer Jordan working the fourth quarter. A very lopsided 56-0 Winnipeg win over Saskatchewan. The Bombers and the Rough Riders now with identical 1-1 records. Now, let's go to CFL Control, and here's Brian Williams.
All right, thank you, Don. With that blowout, we wind up week number 2 in the CFL. Let's have a look at the conference standings, beginning with the Western Conference. Winnipeg now tied with the BC Lions and Saskatchewan behind first place Edmonton. In the Eastern Conference, of course, Toronto won last night. Ottawa and the Argonauts remaining undefeated at 2 wins and no losses. The Bombers destroy Saskatchewan by a score of 56-0. Final score, the Bombers by 56 points. We will talk to you next Thursday night. Our game Thursday, Calgary at Ottawa. I'm Brian Williams. Good night from CFL Control.
In something other than goodwill, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, boy, did they run it up on Saskatchewan 56-0. I think that's more points than they'll score all season in the Eastern Conference.
The Ottawa Roughriders are off to a quick start, winning their first 2 games of the 1986 season, and many believe they might be the power in the Eastern Division. Behind the running and passing of J.C. Watts, the Riders beat Montreal 20-11 in their season opener. And last week, Mark Barus established a club record with 13 receptions in an 18-2 win over the Hamilton Tiger Cats. He talked about the effectiveness of the run and shoot.
Basically, the quarterback and the receivers reading the defense at the same time. And if they're both on the same page and they both read the defense right, we should have the last say-so in the route and should be open.
Stopping Mark Barus and the Ottawa Roughriders will be the problem tonight for Bob Vespasiani and his Calgary Stampeders as they face Joe Moss's unbeaten Ottawa Roughriders live on CBC television from Lansdowne Park, Ottawa.
The following is a live...
Hi, everyone. A cool, cloudy evening, although just a few moments ago, the sun broke through the overcast in the nation's capital as the Rough Riders, 2-0, take on the Calgary Stampeders looking for their first win. And the Calgary Stampeders will be facing that run-and-shoot offense introduced last year by Joe Moss that appears to be much more effective in this 1986 season. And I asked the coach of the Calgary Stampeders, Bob Vespasiani, how his team plans to defend against Watts and the run-and-shoot.
First thing you do is make sure at all times you get 12 men on the field, and secondly, you make sure that whatever coverage you're in, that you've got all bases covered. And with JC in there, you make sure that all the rush lanes are covered so that he can't scramble and hurt you. That's basically, you start with that premise. And then practice like a devil against him.
Practice like a devil, and Ron Lancaster, they have had time to prepare for this game, unlike their previous game where they had to go against the Saskatchewan Roughriders immediately after that loss to Edmonton.
Well, that had to be a very, very tough game for them to play. But as you say, against these guys, they better do just what he says. And the big thing they better do is contain J.C. Watts. They have got to get pressure, and they've got to get it quick. They've got to choke off J.C. Watts from getting outside and then converge on him as you'll see them do here. Get 3 or 4 guys around him, put him on his back because he's the key to the Ottawa offense. And we talk about J.C. Watts. His problems have always been inconsistency at quarterback. When J.C. Watts is playing well, he's unstoppable, but he does have his problems. In fact, in the first game against Montreal, he was benched at halftime, and they went with Tom Burgess, the backup kid from Colgate, in the second half. But last week against Hamilton, he comes out and teams up with Mark Barus, and what a night they had. So J.C. Watts is the key. If they don't contain him, he will be able to get outside, and he's a better runner than he is a thrower, and he loves to run with the football. I think individually on these 2 football teams, we have Jim Reed and Lloyd Lewis. I think are factors in tonight's game. Jim Reed is now in his 8th year, and it's very unique that a running back in his 8th year still needs 30 more yards tonight to get 1,000 yards rushing in his career. He actually has touched the ball more this year than he has in the last 4 or 5, and that's what Joe Moss said he would do. He would get to play fullback like he should. This man, number 76, Lloyd Lewis, the defensive tackle or end, whatever they want, may be the best defensive lineman in the league. On Calgary's side, they've got to get a top performance from quarterback Rick Johnson. Right now, he's completed more passes than anybody in the CFL, and he's going to have to do it tonight if the Calgary Stampeders are going to stand a chance, because that Ottawa defensive front 4 will get to him. He's got great speed at the receiver spot, and particularly with this man, Emmanuel Talbert. I think defensively for these guys, let's take a look at Harold Hallman. He's number 99. He's from Auburn University. He's only 6 foot tall, but he's got extreme quickness, and he's going to be in there on top of J.C. Watts. So I think it's going to prove to be a very interesting ball game, Don.
And it will be interesting from the Calgary standpoint. The first game for Gary Allen, a young man who played very well in the preseason, but because of some disciplinary action, did not start the first 2 games.
Well, you know, there's all kinds of things about disciplinary action. It could have been just a way to get him to the reserve list and not make him feel bad.
The Ottawa Rough Riders basically going with the same lineup, although they are making one major change tonight. Moore is moving in at a defensive halfback position, replacing Chris Sigler, who started the season with a bang, 4 interceptions in the first game against Montreal, but he was injured last week against Hamilton. Right now, let's go to CFL Control, and here's Brian Williams.
Thank you, Don. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to CFL Control. We begin week number 3. The Ottawa Rough Riders undefeated. Calgary, of course, looking for a win. Stampeders need a victory if they hope to keep those fans coming back to McMahon Stadium. We take a look at the scoring leaders in the CFL. Edmonton's Tom Dixon out of UBC with 21. Dean Dorsey of the Riders, former U of T star in Toronto with 19, along with Trevor Kennard. J.T. Hay from Calgary and the former Ottawa Sooner Jr. has 14 points. Coming up at halftime, I will have Stars of the Week from week 2 in the CFL. Marty Haig on the trials and tribulations of the Stampeders in the offseason and the state of football currently in the Cowtown. I'll update baseball. Blue Jays home to California. They're 10 and a half actually behind Boston. The New York
for that 88 Canadian Football League Championship contest. This year, of course, the game will take place under the dome in Vancouver. J.C. Watts and the Ottawa Rough Riders would certainly love to be there representing the Eastern Division of the CFL. And like the Toronto Argonauts, both undefeated to start the 1986 season. Jim Reed gets the call, and Reed has 4 yards. Tonight, the BC Lions will be entertaining the Toronto Argonauts. Then on Saturday, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers visit the Hamilton Tiger Cats and will be at Taylor Field in Regina as the Saskatchewan Rough Riders face the Edmonton Eskimos. We hope you'll be joining us on the CBC television network for that one from Taylor Field.
I was talking to Joe Moss before the game up in his office. Well, we're going to see him try to escape. He steps up in the pocket to escape Beliveau. Woodson's lost his helmet. Now he tries to get outside. Ball swinging. It's stripped away, and this is Vince Goldsmith makes the hit, and Bernie Morrison recovers. Joe Moss was telling me he has a bicycle in his office, asking for road to bike now. He said that's his getaway if things aren't going good at the end of the 3rd quarter.
Well, things aren't going good right now for the Ottawa Rough Riders. The pitch to Allen. Allen tried to cut back inside, and he picked up about 1.5 yards. Bob Vespasiani talked about the intensity of Harold Hallman, and we certainly saw it when he was pursuing J.C. Watts minus his helmet.
Well, that's what he said, that he never stops. He just goes and goes and goes and goes and goes. And he said that's what he likes about him. And, you know, he may be short, but I'll tell you one thing, he's tough. And that's all that matters.
2nd and 9. Try again, everyone. The Stampeders up by a couple of converted touchdowns. Football in Calgary, of course, on the verge of extinction in the offseason. Coming up, Marty Haig will report on the football situation in the city of Calgary. All of the Stars of the Week for week 2 in the CFL, and we will break for national and regional news. Right now, updating Major League Baseball, bottom of the 4th inning in Montreal. Bryn Smith for the Expos. They're tonight. Calgary playing some pretty good football out in front of the Ottawa Rough Riders 21-7. Right now, we break for national and regional news. To 13. Lineman of the week, number 68, Edmonton offensive tackle Rudy Phillips. He was outstanding as Edmonton's front 5 all but neutralized that awesome BC Lions pass rush. And here is linebacker Daryl Nicholson, number 74 of the Ottawa Rough Riders, the defensive star. His inspired play in a tough divisional game led the Riders to an important 18-2 win in Hamilton. Matt Dunnigan, Rudy Phillips, Daryl Nicholson, the Stars of the Week for week 2 of this 1986 season. Sports-wise, it's been quite a year in Calgary. Lanny McDonald and the Flames making it to the Stanley Cup final against Montreal. Of course, this is Stampede Week for you people in Southern Ontario or Southern Alberta. The other big story, the near demise of the Stampeders in the offseason. With more on that, here is Marty Haig.
The Stampeders have started the season with 2 straight losses. They were very close to winning their first game on June 24th, but the Eskimos sent the 27,000 fans at McMahon Stadium home with yet another defeat to reflect on, scoring a dramatic touchdown on the last play of the game to pull out a 1-point victory. 5 days later, the Stampeders weren't as impressive or as close to winning. They were beaten by the Rough Riders in Saskatchewan.
Even though the Stampeders haven't won a game this year, at least they're showing some potential. That didn't seem likely 5 months ago. At times during the past winter, it looked like the club might not make it to the 1986 season. They were very close to folding.
The club had ended 1985 with 13 losses in 16 games, a record deficit of $1.6 million, and no credit at the bank. Attendance had reached a 25-year low. There were a lot of empty seats at McMahon. In an effort to restore the team, the Calgary corporate community was canvassed for $3.6 million to finance a complicated borrowing scheme. When that plan failed, the club, which had been community-owned for nearly 40 years, was put up for sale. For a while, it looked like private ownership would be the answer. A group headed by Calgary oilman Doug Hunter was close to buying the team, but the deal was contingent on the prospective owners receiving a large loan from the city. Council, though, rejected the plan.
I hate to give up. I hate to say absolutely yes that we've given up, but because you know, none of us like to quit. But I think the game's about over.
But it wasn't over. The day after Council's decision, Stampeder fans began to buy season tickets, and that prompted a new plan to save the club. It was based on maintaining community ownership and boosting season ticket sales. The team hoped to sell 25,000 season tickets in just 2 weeks. The Calgary community rallied and did save the Stamps. The club didn't sell 25,000 season tickets, but they made it over the 20,000 mark, and that was enough to keep them alive.
You couldn't have orchestrated what happened better. I think the apathy would not have been broken had there not been a real danger of losing this football team.
The Stampeders are a more positive group, showing lots of enthusiasm for the game, and they also seem more willing to get involved in the community.
As players, I know that we're going out and trying to spend as much time in the community as we can, go to as many of the Stampede functions and give our time to the community as best we can so that people see that we want to contribute something back here to the city of Calgary.
Indeed, community relations are important, but the most critical area for the Stampeders is still on the field. They have to win some football games this year.
All right, thank you, Marty. And on the field, they are indeed showing potential tonight, up 21-7 at the half. I mentioned it is Stampede Week for you people in southern Alberta, a prime time special Sunday night as CBC Sports will cover the 1986 Calgary Stampede. Updating Major League Baseball now in the 5th inning here in Toronto.
It's not a contest. I mean, he's going to go all the way to anywhere he wants to with that. You just can't open the seams that wide to a man with Talbert's ability.
Well, Emmanuel Talbert scoring the one touchdown. Alexander got one, and Greg Figure, just before the half ended, also came up with a major score. So the Calgary Stampeders, looking for their first win of the year with 30 minutes remaining, are in a good position to do it.
They're in a good position to do it, but they better not go to sleep because the Ottawa Rough Riders aren't that far behind. A couple plays have backfired.
Well, we'll return to Lansdowne Park in the second half of tonight's ball game. But first, let's pause for this message.
I'd like to show you our new location for Mo Campbell Used Cars at 2491 Olette Avenue, just south of the overpass near Jackson Park. It's the new home of our 86-point check plan.
Right, Mo. All our used cars must pass an 86-point inspection. We have a wide selection of cars to choose from, all makes and all models. And only at Mo Campbell's Used Cars will you get a free oil and filter change as long as you own the car.
Remember, the Mo Campbell Used Car location is now at 2491 Olette.
Newsday, where people make the news difference. Sure, our strength is solid, intelligent reporting, but more importantly, it's the people at Newsday who make the real news difference. From the cameramen to the street reporters, from the production assistants to the assignment editors, on air and off, concerned, dedicated professionals who live and work in your town. When it's news that matters to you, you can be sure it's news that matters to us.
Newsday, weeknights at 6 with David Compton and Norma Kent.
Gary Allen in 30 minutes, a pretty good night's work. You've got almost 100 yards rushing. You have to be happy with your performance so far.
Yeah, I'm really happy with the whole offensive performance. You know, we came out here in mind to do that, you know, run the ball, and it opens up our passing game. That's why we're up right now.
Do you want to talk about the problems you had that first game of the season where you missed a practice?
No, not really. I think we'll just let that one pass, you know. I think everybody out there knows, you know, how I feel about it, and that's why I'm here trying to get, you know, do the things that I'm doing right now. Well, just to show people that I'm, you know, I'm worthy.
I'm sure in the eyes of Coach Bob Vespasiani and the Calgary fans, you've already redeemed yourself in the second half. Will you continue much the same attack, do much the same as you did in the first?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we will. You know, everything's going really well, and I think we have Ottawa in a position where they have to go ahead and make an adjustment. All we have to do is continue to do the things that we're doing and execute. You know, I've had a couple bad runs, you know, but everything else has been working really well.
Gary, you're a very exciting ball player. We look forward to seeing more of you.
Thank you.
Joe Moss has probably seen more than enough of Gary Allen already tonight. And right now he has to be concerned about his offensive squad putting some points on the board. Although defensively, an Ottawa team that had yielded just 13 points in its first 2 games has watched Bob Vespasiani's Calgary Stampeders post 21 in 30 minutes.
I think that Ottawa's defense, their linebackers are sitting 4 or 5 yards off the line of scrimmage, and I think that the Stampeders decided if you're going to sit that deep, we're going to run at you and pull you up there. And when they pull them up, then they're able to throw over top of them. They got a good balanced attack going. Somebody put together an awful good game plan, and they're executing it the way Coach Vespasiani would like to see it. J.T.
Hay preparing to kick off to get this second half underway. Butts and Brown are back at the 10-yard line to accept this kickoff. Butts starting out from the 14-yard line. He's being chased across the field looking for... Will he get to the end zone? He'll try, but he'll be stopped at the 5.
Well, that was a mistake. If you're an Ottawa Ruff.
First and goal, Calgary from the 5. Allen gets the pitch, cuts back inside, but he'll be stopped at the 3.
Big team, let's go. Lead 44. Hurry up, hurry up.
Well, they're going to lead it. Going to get a lead. We're going to see Allen following somebody. See who they put back there.
Short yardage offense comes in. Second and goal from the 2.5.
Should be running right over Yelerenko and Rob Smith.
Following the block of Feger, but the Ottawa Rough Riders, Al Washington was there to plug that hole.
And Michel Bourgeot came from the inside, so when you've got one coming from the inside, one from the outside, there's really nowhere to go. Better kick the field goal, I think. Doesn't look like they're going to.
I don't like this particular call by Bob Vespasiani. A field goal pretty well puts it on the breach. It would require 2 touchdowns with 2-point conversions then to tie. Incomplete. It was intended for Tyrone, knocked down by Darrell Hall. So with 2:48 remaining, the Ottawa Rough Riders take over at their own 2.5-yard line. And the kick is good, and that will put it away for the Calgary Stampeders with 2:24 left on the clock. It's now a 31-15 game, Calgary in front. The Calgary Stampeders return home for their next game, and that will be against the Hamilton Tiger Cats a week tomorrow. The Ottawa Rough Riders a week tonight will be at Commonwealth Stadium in Edmonton against the Eskimos.
Well, I wonder, you know, with 2:24, I wonder if we'll see the third quarterback. Joe Moss was talking about him up there, Gilbert Renfro. Big kid, 6'1", 195 pounds. He looks taller than that. We're just liable to see him get into the ballgame because Coach Moss wants to get him some work. They're not going to win this one. They might as well give him a series.
It was the third down play. He simply let it sail through his hands, and that is also the end of the ball game with the Calgary Stampeders winning by a score of 31-15 over the Ottawa Rough Riders. Bob Vespasiani, the winning coach tonight here at Lansdowne Park in Ottawa. Joe Moss, who had directed his team to successful outings against Montreal and Hamilton, heading off now to that Ottawa Rough Rider clubhouse. And for Calgary football fans, this indeed is a happy moment here at Lansdowne Park. Outstanding individual efforts by a number of people tonight, and Coach Bob Vespasiani, congratulations and recording your first victory as a head man.
Well, thank you, Don. It felt good, but the fellas that played that game, they needed this one. They needed this badly, and I'm sure Joe Moss is feeling a little remorse over there, but I can't feel any remorse.
Bob, we talked to you prior to the start of the ball game about the demoralizing effect of that very first game of the season against the Edmonton Eskimos. You were all primed, you were ready, you played so well, appeared to have it locked up, and then you had to come back 4 days later. I think tonight we saw the real Calgary Stampeder football team.
Well, I hope so. We just take one at a time, Don, and you know, we have no excuses for what happened in Saskatchewan. We got beat by a better team that day. You got to bounce back from those things, and if these fellas learned anything from the first one and that second one, then we're going to be okay. But we just take one at a time, enjoy this, and then get ready for Hamilton.
Did you feel you could run on the Ottawa Rough Riders the way you did tonight? It just appeared that your offensive line seemed to own them up front.
Well, yeah, and while we wanted to establish that, we didn't do that at all in our last game well. So we wanted to try to establish that, and we did. And Gary ran very well. I don't know how many yards he rolled up, but he was very productive tonight and did a real heck of a fine job for us.
You were telling us before the game you liked his moves, that he always had the first man. He would beat the first man.
Yes.
He did that for you tonight, didn't he?
Oh, I guess he did. You know, we hope we can do that a lot more times this season. But it was, you know, we had to establish the run, Ronnie, and we were fortunate we did. We got some other things we got to improve on, but that's football. We'll get better every week.
One quick question. You had a 28-15 lead, the ball on the 3-yard line.
I know.
Did you think of a field goal?
Sure did, but we're going to take a penalty, move it back another 5, and kick it, and would have put it out of reach. But we let it go. I had a feeling we could stick it in there, and I gambled. I lost, but we got the field goal back later on an interception.
I think you knew they were going to throw an interception next play for you,
well,
right?
I wish I could say that, Ron. However.
Bob Vespasiani, congratulations on your first victory, and to the Calgary Stampeders on an impressive 31-15 win over Ottawa.
Thank you very much.
And we'll return with our post-game show and our Carling O'Keefe Game Stars after this. I don't know whether it's coincidence, but a couple of products of the University of Hawaii are our Carling O'Keefe Game Stars, Gary Allen and Anthony Woodson.
Yeah.
You fellas didn't play together at Hawaii, did you?
Yes, we sure did. Woody was he's a freshman when I was there. He's a young cat, but
sophomore. Wait a minute, freshman and sophomore.
All
right.
Well, figure it out, fellas. Anyway, you're both going to receive those gold coins. Congratulations on your performance. And Gary, you had a strong ball game tonight. The very first play, you ran for 10 yards. I guess that's a good feeling for a running back to get the ball to start a game.
Yeah, it was kind of good for me because, you know, I was kind of nervous at first, and it did help loosen me up there, and I was ready to go from then on.
We're going to take a look at your touchdown coming up. You'll be able to see it down there. Why don't you tell us about it? It's that one that Johnson threw you.
Okay, well, we had ran this play earlier in the night, and I had told him that the corner had sat down. You know, I told him that it was open. So we came back to it later, and Rick sat in there, and he looked him off, and it was pretty. You know, it was just the way it was supposed to be designed.
Yes, indeed, and that was the one that really put it away for the Calgary Stampeders. Anthony Woodson, the Ottawa Rough Riders, posed some problems with their run and shoot, but you fellas seem to be pretty well prepared.
Yeah, we had a real good week last week, and one thing that's sure is perfect practice makes a perfect game. And I thought that we had a real good perfect practice last week.
You look like you enjoy running down the field on special teams.
Oh, yeah, I like to run. A lot of people breast on special teams. I like to give it full go.
Anthony Woodson, congratulations on being chosen our Carling O'Keefe Defensive Game Star. And to you, Gary Allen, congratulations on being selected our Carling O'Keefe Offensive Game Star, as the Calgary Stampeders win it 31-15 over the Ottawa Rough Riders. And right now, let's go to CFL Control and Brian Williams.
All right, thank you, Don Whitman. Good effort by the Calgary Stampeders tonight. Let's have a look at the conference standings. We begin with the Eastern Conference. Just a reminder, Toronto plays in BC tomorrow night. We take a look at the Western standings. The Stampeders winning their first game of the year. Saturday night at 9 Eastern, we'll have the Edmonton Eskimos and the Riders from Taylorfield, Regina. Let's update Major League Baseball. In Toronto, Jim, coming up for all of us at CBC Sports. Let's show you the schedule beginning. Congratulations to the Calgary Stampeders. Our next telecast is Saturday night from Regina.
Went on tonight. You saw it here on Channel 9. Calgary over Ottawa, 31-15. I'll show you Calgary's touchdowns right now. This was the highlight here. Okay, we're in the second quarter now. Alexander, number 88, drops back. Oh, he gets the pass right here from Ricky Johnson. Here comes the pass. Watch number 88. Gets it. Hey, in the end zone. Piece of cake. 7-0. Calgary takes the lead. Ottawa comes back to tie it at 7. We are still in the second quarter now. Johnson again. This time a pass to Tolbert. Watch number 19. Is he going to get this? He's all by himself. Hey, piece of cake. It's 14-7 now. Calgary on top of Ottawa. We've got one more TD to show you, and this is Feiger. All right, where is he? All right. Okay, drop back pass. It ends up a 1-yard run. Okay, there it is. It's all.
Tonight at Taylorfield in Regina, the Rough Riders will entertain the league's only undefeated team. The Eskimos started the season in dramatic fashion. A final play touchdown pass, Dunnigan to Stephen Jones for a 21-20 victory over Calgary. Last week at home, the Eskimos destroyed the Grey Cup champion BC Lions 36-13. But Coach Jackie Parker figures the Rough Riders will be tough tonight.
Anytime we ever play Saskatchewan, we have a knockdown, drag-out type of football game, so there's no reason for any of our guys certainly to be overconfident.
The Eskimos will be going after their third straight win tonight, while the Rough Riders will attempt to rebound from last week's humiliation in Winnipeg. Asking, can the Rough Riders bounce back from last week's whipping in Winnipeg? They hope the answer will be a positive one tonight as Saskatchewan faces the Edmonton Eskimos. Hi, everyone. 56-0 was the score last Saturday night in Winnipeg as the Blue Bombers humiliated Saskatchewan. Coach Jack Gotta said the only good thing that happened to his team, they weren't struck by lightning as they left the field. He also had some other comments yesterday.
Well, I think we pulled Paul and some of the other guys out of there. Maybe we could have gone on and scored some points, but the one thing they don't want to do is to look glorious in defeat. It was a hammer job. Tommy Clements and that whole bunch, they were just had a hot hand, and they just put it to us, and we had some chances, I thought, early on to do some things. We mishandled some punts and kickoffs and all those kind of things, but we just really got thoroughly, really hammered, you know. So from that standpoint, you just have to bite down and kind of take it. It's a hard thing. But on the other hand, I think the most importantly, that I wouldn't want anybody to think that they ever got out of there with anything other than a good old-fashioned thrashing. So to have somebody maybe make some diving catches in the end zone and make the score 50-14 or something like that, that glorious in defeat attitude is something we don't need.
A good old-fashioned butt-kicking for the Saskatchewan Roughriders last week, but sometimes teams bounce back from what seems to be their darkest moment.
You know, nobody ever likes to be embarrassed on a football field or anywhere else, and a 56-0 defeat is an embarrassment. So you got to put it behind you, look forward to the next game, and you got something to prove. Let's go out and get it done. But tonight they're going to have to do a whole lot of things different, and that means they've got to move the football against another good defense. That means Joe Powell is going to have to do the throwing, and people like Ray Elgard, Mikey Limes, and these guys have to catch it. But they've got another slot back on this team by the name of Tony Dennis. Tony Dennis last year backed up for the last 5 games, and he's got this opportunity to start, and he really is the only one that made a good play last week offensively for the Rough Riders. He was a defensive back at Simon Fraser and holds 8 records at that school. Gary Moulton, they acquired this middle linebacker from the Winnipeg Blue Bombers for Homer Jordan, a quarterback. Any defense have to have a good middle linebacker to be top. They feel he can get the job done. But when you look on the other side of the fence, you've got to stop this man, Matt Dunnigan. Everybody knows he can run with the football. But last week against the BC Lions, he proved he can play like a quarterback that every coach would be proud of. He stayed in the pocket. He hit receivers. He only ran the ball a few times. But I'll tell you one thing, he's young. They say he's starting to read defenses, but as long as you can run like he does, anything can happen.
Well, when you talk about Dunnigan's scrambling and running ability, you naturally think of the Eskimo ground game revolving around the quarterback. But they've got a couple of pretty good people back there in Chris Skinner and Milson Jones.
Boy, I'll say, you know, it's very unusual. Last year they led the league in rushing, but this year with Chris Skinner and Milson Jones, everybody talks about the 2 Canadian running backs the Eskimos got. You know, to me, that never was a big deal. I never cared whether a guy was Canadian, American, or what he is. When they blow the whistle down there, they don't ask you for those statistics or nationality. They want to know one thing. Can you play football? Yes, these 2 guys can play. Chris Johnstone, their rookie, can play. They've got a good football. A guy like Dunnigan, the controls, you're in good shape.
Well, Jackie Parker said at the start that every time the Eskimos have faced Saskatchewan, they have had a good football game. We look for good action tonight here at Taylor Field. We'll have the opening kickoff in just a moment. But right now, let's go to CFL Control and Brian Williams.
Thank you, Don. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to CFL Control in Toronto. We take a look at the standings, beginning with the Western Conference. BC Lions defeating Toronto last night. In the Eastern Conference, Hamilton, one of 2 winless teams. However, that could all be changing tonight. There is one other game being played. It is halftime at Ivor-Wynne Stadium in Hamilton. And somewhat surprisingly, the Ticats out in front of Winnipeg 13-2. Action from the first half. Tom Clements is passing 6 Winnipeg turnovers in the first half. Here's an interception by the Ticats' Mark Streeter. Now 2 plays after that interception. Number 4, quarterback Kenny Hobart goes in from the 4-yard line to the right side. And again, just starting the 3rd quarter at Ivor-Wynne Stadium in Hamilton, the Ticats lead by 11. Coming up at halftime, full highlights from that game. A report on last night's game in Vancouver. We will take a look at Ryder.
It would be an understatement to say it was a little damp around Taylor Field this afternoon. For about 2 hours, the heavens opened up, and the field, an artificial surface, was covered with water. And from the look of the sky off to the west, we could be in for more precipitation before this game is completed. 15 degrees is the temperature. A mean-looking sky and a mean band of Edmonton Eskimos trying to make it 3 wins in a row, and they will kick off to the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Tom Dixon preparing for that chore.
Again, Tim McRae from Ottawa is going to start in the running back, and instead of Denny Ferdinand, David Conrad will probably start in there tonight. Wide receiver, same as it's been all season for them. Jeff Patterson, and the new guy from Montreal. Offensive line, been together for a while, so I think that'll be something going early tonight.
Ferdinand gets the handoff, and he's out to the 30-yard line.
Completed pass. The guy up at the top, the referee, he's the only one that can see whether he's still bobbling the ball or has complete control. He calls it a touchdown. The guy on the other side, who had the good look at it, waved it off.
Procedure, Edmonton number 78. Decline, 3rd down.
The only Rough Rider back. The kick is wide, and McDermott will concede a single point. So the Edmonton Eskimos are first on the board. They lead Saskatchewan 1-0 with 8:08 remaining in the first quarter. Here's Brian Williams.
Trek University.
Well, he was filling in for an injured John Sturdivant last year, and he's won the job.
Thank you, Don. Here's the Hamilton touchdown. Ken Hobart, second of the game, making it 20-2. Hamilton over Winnipeg in the 3rd quarter.
Well, there was movement at the line of scrimmage and carried on to the end zone.
Well, he's the guy last week that made the 2 interceptions against Roy DeWalt, both on the same type of pattern. This time, Tony Dennis is going to come from the left side of your screen underneath, and the ball's just thrown a little bit too far. See, it didn't see it, and it hits him, and then he just deflects it. But watch the acceleration right here. He just runs away from him. That's great speed. Well, that's another turnover. They got a single off of a interception or a fumble. Now they turn around and get an interception for a touchdown. You can't do that.
So with 4:33 remaining, the Edmonton Eskimos will attempt to increase their advantage to 9-0, and Tom Dixon adds the extra points as the Eskimos have jumped in front by 9 with 4:33 left to play in this opening quarter.
That
So the Rough Riders finally break the goose egg that had existed through 5 complete quarters and a minute and 13 seconds of this second quarter.
It's always nice to get some points on that board. You get tired of looking at that goose egg up there, and you know it had to be going through Coach Goddard's mind as you look at the bench. Boy, you say, when's the last time I saw any points up there? You start wondering.
All right, thank you, Don Whitman. In the fourth quarter at Ivor Wynne Stadium in Hamilton, Hufnagel passing for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers to James Murphy, an 82-yard touchdown. Winnipeg starting to come back against Hamilton. They missed the 2-point convert. They trail by 9 points in the fourth quarter. Now we return you to Taylor Field in Regina.
The ball is at the 1-yard line. 1:20 is the time remaining. Can the Rough Riders do it 3 times in a row? Damon Allen keeps. Did he make it? Yes. The Riders protest that Allen did not get into the end zone, but he broke the plane of the goal line, and that's all that's required. And the Edmonton Eskimos again have a 2-touchdown lead.
They were waiting out there for Allen. That fake didn't fool very many people. They stayed at home, played it. He just made a good effort getting into the end zone, and as you say, he only had to break that plane. It's a good thing because it was close.
And he just made it into the end zone. And the point after now by next Thursday, the Saskatchewan Rough Riders will travel to Toronto. The Edmonton Eskimos will be at home to take on the Ottawa Rough Riders. And we'll have those games for you on CBC television. Check your local listings for the telecast time in your area. And next Friday, as we continue the CFL schedule for next week, Hamilton visits Calgary. Then on Saturday, Montreal goes against British Columbia Lions under the dome, and that game will be seen on the CBC television network. Frank Balkovic back in at that linebacking position. Pow to the side.
And at the half, it is Saskatchewan trailing the Edmonton Eskimos by 14. There is one other game being played tonight. That's at Ivor Wynne Stadium in Hamilton. Just a few seconds remaining in that game. The Hamilton Ticats, somewhat surprisingly, leading the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Now, coming up at halftime, I will have highlights of that game being played in Hamilton. We'll take a look at last night's game between Toronto and BC. We'll have a report on the Hamilton Ticats have defeated the Winnipeg Blue Bombers by a score of 28-11. Hamilton, somewhat surprisingly, led by a score of 13-2 at the half. Let's pick up action in the second quarter tonight, or second half, I should say, at Ivor Wynne Stadium. Kenny Hobart going for his second touchdown of the game. He goes to the left side, and in the second half, the third quarter, Ticats in front of Winnipeg by a score of 20-2. John Hufnagel out of Penn State, replacing Tom Clements, who was so hot 1 week ago tonight against Saskatchewan. 82-yard touchdown to James Murphy. Now, they went for and missed the 2-point conversion, so at this point, Winnipeg was coming back, trailing 20-11. However, Walter Bender, a 16-yard touchdown in the fourth quarter, and the Hamilton Ticats tonight defeat the Winnipeg Blue Bombers for their first win of the year. Ticats winning at home after losing 2 straight. One game in the CFL played last night. That was out at BC Place in Vancouver. The Argonauts led at halftime, but the BC Lions came on to win that game. We have highlights. Last night, BC defeating Toronto.
The Argos were first to take control. Chris Woods, fielding a Toronto punt return, blazed a 74-yard trail to set up field goal number 2, putting the Argos in the lead 6-0. They soon stretched that to 14-0 with a touchdown. Craig Ellis goes over the top from the 1-yard line. But with the start of the second half, it was the start of a new game for the Lions. Roy DeWalt connects with Ned Armour for a 30-yard gain. Armour going extra feet as he outreaches Jerry Nash, pull it home for a touchdown. Lions now trailing 14-10. BC's new and improved play continues. Jim Sandusky comes up big in his debut showing of the season, taking the pass 28 yards to the 1-yard line. Evan Jenkins does the honors, putting the Lions in front 17-14. Paul Osbaldiston, filling in for the injured Louis Passaglia, continues to impress, nailing this 44-yard field goal in the fourth quarter. 20-14 now the score. Both sides took their share of licks. DeWalt a little worse for wear here as he gets rammed, putting him out of commission for the duration of the game with a bruised arm. Tim Cowan steps in to pick up where DeWalt left off. A 100-yard drive was the result. Sandusky again the receiver here, but it was Cowan taking this one across. BC rounded out the scoring, though, with a single to end the game 28-17, the final. The Lions now 2-1 on the year. Diana McDonald, CBC Sports, Vancouver.
Thank you, Diana. A split in the interlocking games. BC winning last night. Tonight, as we showed you, it is Hamilton defeating Winnipeg. Stay with us. We'll preview control at the half. Edmonton leading Saskatchewan by 2 converted touchdowns. I'm Brian Williams. There is a national identity program underway to promote the Saskatchewan Roughriders and Rider Pride. With more on that, here's Don Whitman.
We're really rolling.
Football in Saskatchewan has been a way of life, and Rider Pride flourished in the late 60s and early 70s behind Ron Lancaster, Ed McQuarters, and George Reed. And now the Saskatchewan Rough Rider Football Club has formed a new booster club. General Manager Bill Quinter tells us about it.
Basically, it was organized to help generate revenue for the club, and at the same time to give our fans all over the world, so to speak, an opportunity to stay up with what's going on with the Saskatchewan Roughriders. And we do this through the publication of the Green Line newspaper, which is an 8-page tabloid-sized newspaper that comes out once a month, and we have articles in there about the players and about the organization and the people involved in the volunteer group, and even letters that we get in from fans all over the country. And we would all be surprised to know the numbers living in British Columbia and throughout all the provinces, and even in the States, and even in England, Australia, New Zealand, places like that. We want to have a very prominent organization throughout the whole country and wherever our fans are living, so that it gives them an opportunity to put their finger on something and say, hey, I belong to this, and I'm supporting this football club, and we're interested in what that club is doing.
And if you ever have been or are now a Rough Rider football fan and don't reside in Regina, this is how you can become a member of the Rider Pride National Booster Club. And Ron Lancaster, as a former star, a football player in Regina with your sweater retired, let me present you with a Booster Club button.
Well, thanks very much, Don. I enjoyed my years playing football here, and I played with a lot of great guys, but when you talk about Rider Pride, I think it's been the fans all along that have made the club what it is.
Just slip General Manager Bill Quinter 30 beans on the way out.
Okay.
Brian, you too can join for 30 beans.
I'll tell you something, Whitman, with your money, you should pay not only for me, but for the entire crew here in Toronto. One of this country's great field in Regina.
Well, the Saskatchewan Roughriders have more first downs than the Eskimos, but that very important stat, total rushing yardage, 174 for Edmonton, pretty much tells the story of this ball game. Chris Skinner has run for 105 yards, and this was the run, a 19-yard gallop, that put him over that 100-yard mark. Skinner with a 58-yard run earlier in the ball game for a Saskatchewan touchdown. A very effective ground game tonight for the Edmonton Eskimos, and it's the ground game plus that Tony interception that really has given Edmonton control.
That was it. They got off to the bad start when Joe Powell threw an interception that Cliff Tony made the interception. What we're going to say is the way Tony Dennis is trying to get underneath and into here, and Tony goes with him, there's just no reason. Watch the ball in the air. It looks like he's not even looking at the football, goes right past him, and Tony will, he's just as surprised as Dennis. It hits him, bounces now, he sees it in the air. This is when he turns on the jets. He has great speed because Tony Dennis is pretty fast. This gives them the early lead, 9-0 after a field goal. Now, this has been a good football game. As you say, Chris Skinner ran for that 105 yards. We said the Eskimos could run the ball. Now we're going to see it.
Well, the Edmonton Eskimos lead by 14 here at Taylor Field in Regina. And we'll be underway with the second half right after this. First half against Saskatchewan, 105 yards running with the football. What are you doing offensively that has opened those gaping holes?
Well, the offensive line is doing a great job up front blocking, and I'm just reading the holes, and it's able for me to get outside and inside, and we've been just running the heck out of them.
In the past, you have had some success running with the ball against Saskatchewan personally, haven't you?
Yes, I have. It seems like in preseason when I played against them, and even during the year, I always have a good game against Saskatchewan. The guys were talking about that on the way down. They said, this is my field.
Was it your intent to try and establish a strong ground game tonight?
Well, not really. We just go and take what they give us, and we've been working on a ground game during practice, and we figured it was about time we got started, and it's happened to be working out well tonight for us.
Chris, a very good start for both yourself and the Eskimos. Continued success in the second half.
Thank you very much, Don.
And the Edmonton Eskimos will be receiving the kickoff to start the second half of the ball game. To attempt a field goal from 45 yards out. Laurier is the lone man back for the Eskimos. It is good. And the Saskatchewan Roughriders make it a 24-13 ball game with 11:02 remaining in the third quarter. You said prior to the start of the ball game that the Roughriders tonight would not be as bad as they were last week, and you also predicted that the Winnipeg Blue Bombers would not be as good.
It's just one of those things, you know, as we said earlier, the Riders were embarrassed last week. You're going to come out and play a lot better game next week. Winnipeg did everything right last week. Tonight they had their problems.
Everything wrong. 11 turnovers in that loss to the Hamilton Tiger Cats. The Ticats' first win of the year. Donegan trying that quarterback draw. Not a great deal more, I would guess, in the stands tonight. Many of them, I'm sure, kept away by the rain that fell throughout most of the day. Pass intended for Patterson.
They had a stop-and-go pattern called on Ron Howard out here with Jeff Patterson. And Jeff went down the field, and he stopped, and then he's going to swing out.
Matt Dunnigan and Damon Allen.
I think that may be agreed by most people in the CFL, because Damon Allen showed last year when Dunnigan got hurt that he certainly could come in and do the job for him. He won him a few ball games, and, you know, they got another one up there. It's not bad either.
There are some people in Winnipeg who might argue that Tom Clements and John Huffnagel might be the number 1-1-2 quarterbacking combination, but they didn't have any success tonight at Iverwin Stadium in Hamilton. Jackie Parker's Edmonton Eskimos did here at Taylor Field. Jackie, congratulations. We were speculating that you might say your offense took what the Rough Riders gave you tonight.
Well, the Rough Riders played really hard, you know, and they took a lot of things away from us, and we made some yards running inside, which kind of saved us. And then, you know, I thought the last quarter, Matt kind of handled the thing really well and run a lot of clock out. So it was a real tough football game, just like we knew it would be.
Well, you said at the start of the ball game that you expected a tough game. A lot of people thought you might have been being kind to the Saskatchewan Roughriders, but they did play tough.
Oh, they got some real good defensive personnel, and they can move the football around. So they're going to win their share of the games.
Jackie, you don't have much time to prepare. You go home now to face the Ottawa Roughriders.
Well, that's right. You know, we've been doing a little midnight work on that. The coaches have, so we'll be all ready to start getting ready for them, you know, tomorrow. Like.
Jackie, congratulations on the 31-19 victory tonight here at Taylor Field.
Thank you, Don.
And we'll return to Taylor Field in Regina right after this. Who our offensive game star would be. Chris Skinner, congratulations. Tonight you ran for 157 yards. You caught another 3 passes for 36 more. You have to be extremely proud of your achievement tonight.
Well, I'm just happy that we won the game. The offensive line played extremely well out there tonight and was able to run the ball quite a bit, and Matt was trying to read what he could, and I happened to catch a few balls as well.
We're going to put you to work right now. We're going to show you that touchdown run and ask you to describe it for us.
I can't see anything.
Well, that's a problem we have sometimes as well, and obviously all the Saskatchewan Roughriders saw was the back of your jersey saying goodbye as you took off on that 58-yard run. But Chris, this, as you said, seems to be a good ballpark for you to play in. You have success here.
It seems to be that way. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's just because I happen to have a good game against this team, or it's just that the offensive line plays well every time we're here. But I'm just glad we won the game.
Defensively, Danny Bass, you had a strong game. You seem to be in on a lot of plays tonight.
Well, they had some keys as far as offensively. They ran a lot of tights, and when they did that, we knew they were going to run the ball. But you got to give Saskatchewan credit. They never gave up. They never gave up, and they played a lot better than they did against Winnipeg.
Danny Bass, congratulations on the Edmonton Eskimos' 3rd straight win and your selection as our Carling O'Keefe defensive game star, and Chris Skinner as our Carling O'Keefe offensive game star. The Edmonton Eskimos 3-0 with their win tonight. Ron Lancaster, a good triumph for Edmonton.
Well, it was a hard-earned triumph. I think that was the key. They went out and got it.
And now let's go to CFL Control in Toronto and Brian Williams.
All right, thank you, Don Whitman. As you say, Edmonton, the only undefeated team in the CFL. That fact is reflected in the Western Conference standings. Winnipeg played tonight at Ivor Stadium in Hamilton. The Ticats have defeated the Blue Bombers by 17 points. Let's show you the highlights. We begin in the first half. Ken Hobart following an interception of Tom Clements by Mark Streeter. Ken Hobart goes in for his first of 2 touchdowns from the 4-yard line. 13-2, Hamilton over Winnipeg at the half. Moving to the third quarter. Hobart will go to the left side. It's his second touchdown of the game. The Cats at this point in command, 20-2 before the hometown fans at Ivor win. In the fourth quarter, John Hufnagel out of Penn State University in place of Notre Dame's Tom Clements, and Hufnagel connects with James Murphy, an 82-yard touchdown. Winnipeg missed a 2-point conversion. They were coming back, trailing 20-11. The Ticats, though, put it out of reach as Walter Bender goes in from the 16-yard line. The Ticats defeat Winnipeg tonight. We take a look at the Eastern standings. Montreal, the only winless team in the CFL. Quickly in baseball, the Blue Jays score. Edmonton defeating Saskatchewan. And next week, Thursday, 2 games, Saskatchewan at Toronto. Ottawa will play at Edmonton. I'm Brian Williams. Good night from CFL Control.
When the gun sounded, the Bombers had made enough unforced errors to net the Cats a 28-11 victory.
After running it up on the Saskatchewan Roughriders last week, Winnipeg gets some of its own medicine from Hamilton. Here on the first series of the game, Willard Reeves surrenders one of 2 first-half fumbles to the Cats. Hamilton gets a field goal from Bernie Ruoff. Out of it, they lead 3-0. Turnovers continue in the first half for the Bombers. Mark Streeter picks off one of 4 Tom Clements interceptions in the first half. He returns it all the way to the 5. That sets up this play. Hobart fakes it to Walter Bender. Then he takes it himself on the bootleg, shades of Russ Jackson. Hamilton, a 13-2 lead at the half. In the second half, the turnovers continue for the Bombers. Streeter picks off yet another, and he scoots down to the 20-yard line before being stopped by Winnipeg. And once again, Hobart calls his own number. This time he bobs and weaves 16 yards for the score. That'll put Hamilton up 20-3 in the third. Both clubs add a touchdown in the fourth quarter, and Hamilton runs out the clock for a 28-11 win over the Bombers.